Hello, everyone. I'm Ron Anbar. I'm a pediatric pulmonologist, which is lung doctor, who got involved in counseling and teaching young people about hypnosis. But it's 28 years ago. The time, it keeps increasing the time. I was working with a young man who had very bad asthma and food allergies, milk allergies. And one day he said to me, when I've been smelling cheeseburgers, I've been developing asthma attacks. And I thought it was a rather strange symptom. And I asked him to imagine eating a cheeseburger, and he developed an asthma attack. And I said, stop it. And he did. I said, wait a minute, you're kidding me. No, I'm not kidding. I couldn't breathe. And I'm thinking, if you can think your way into illness, can you think your way out? And so that intrigued me. I knew very little about hypnosis. Hypnosis, by the way, means using your imagination to help yourself. And some of the tools I teach young people is how to regulate their emotions, both for medical conditions and psychological conditions or dealing with stress. So I knew a little about it, and I found a therapist that used hypnosis in the community. And I said to my patient, go see him and then come back and teach me what you learned. And he said, I don't want to go see a psychologist. I'm not crazy. I'd like to work with you. And I said, okay, I don't know anything about it. He said, I don't care, teenager. So I went to my friend, the psychiatrist, and asked, could you please back me up if I have a question? He said he would. And I started learning about counseling and hypnosis and the mind. So now I'll skip ahead 28 years and tell you, here's what I learned. Every person who has chronic symptoms, so be it school-related stress or stomach aches or anxiety, you pick your symptom, psychology is involved. Either the psychology is causing the symptom, much more than we realize, or you're reacting to your symptoms. So for example, if your child is stressed because they're not doing as well in school as they would like, or you would like, or both, they might develop physical or psychological symptoms. And until you address the stress and how to deal with it, they're not going to get much better. A lot of medical care, a lot of health care in the United States, I think Chinese medicine is much better in terms of treating a person holistically. A lot of health care in the United States is aimed at the symptom. Yesterday, I went to a talk being given by a counselor, a marriage and family therapy counselor, and she was talking all about kids having anxiety. And if you want to, we can talk later why kids have more anxiety today than they might have had years ago. But what she said was, well, social media is a big problem, which is true, but there's other issues. And she gave a lot of tools about how to deal with anxiety, breathing, imagining and being in a calm place, distracting yourself. Those are all good tools, and we can talk about those if you like. However, what was missing to me is, did she know why they were having anxiety and address the issue? So for example, if there's a bully in school, or if they feel stupid in school, whatever the issue is, and you don't deal with it, you can calm down, but you're still having trouble. And what's missing in both medical care and healthcare is the idea that we don't want to just treat the symptom. You want to figure out the cause and then deal with it. The cool thing about teenagers is if you ask them and listen carefully, they'll often tell you what the problem is, but you have to listen to it. You need to, sometimes they'll tell you things that don't make sense to you. And then you don't say, well, that's not right, or this is what I think as a parent. We're going to talk about it a bit later, how to communicate with your teen. If you listen and you accept what they tell you, then you might be able to help them through whatever is making them difficulty for them. So for example, some teenagers and parents catastrophize. I got my first B, now I'm a failure. Now I will never get into my top school. Now my parents will disown me. You get that kind of, and that's a tremendous amount of stress that's needless. Now, sometimes the parents are contributing to it with what I will call unrealistic pressure, expectations. But sometimes it's just teen driven, and you may not even know. You might say, I never pushed my kid. but the kid is doing that for themselves. And the only way you're going to find out that's what's stressing them is if you listen very carefully. And they may be afraid to tell you because it might upset you. You have some really good kids, they don't want to disappoint you, so they may not even tell you the truth. So part of it is if you see your kid struggling, rather than saying, buck up, just go, or tell me, if you're not interacting well with them, suggest maybe go to another family member or go to a therapist, but find a place where they can express themselves. So that's just a general overview. Again, the basic message is if you've got a chronic problem, stress, feeling pressure to do well in sports, stomach aches, depression, don't just lift the symptoms, find out what's going on. And if you can't figure it out, go to a professional, find out what's going on so you can deal with it. So that's my introduction. We're going to talk, I want to answer a lot of questions, and I want to talk about what's important to you to find out. But I think the first thing I'm going to talk about next is just communicating. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat that communicating through Zoom is not great. And the problem with Zoom is most of your cameras are still off. I encourage you again to turn on. Why do I want the cameras to be turned on? First of all, I want to see who I'm talking with. Second of all, I want to see if what I'm saying resonates, and maybe it's offensive, or maybe you're upset. I can't tell if your camera's off. And if you don't look at your teenager, you don't know either. Or if the teen won't talk to you, you don't know. So you really want to have feedback, visual and auditory feedback, which is missing in Zoom. And I know our society is all about Zoom. It's much more convenient. I get it. It's convenient for me. I don't have to travel long distance anymore. I get it. But in terms of communication, it's not a great substitution. Unfortunately, during COVID, colleges pretended education can be done well through the internet. And we're still left with a lot of education being online. I hope you already know that the college experience is much more than about the classes. Number one, it's about social interactions. My hypnosis society, used to be president years ago, and now I'm a member, has gone to online teaching for the last 3 years. I think that's a really poor practice. I'm actually trying to get back on the board. I haven't been on the board for 5 years, to shake them by the lapels and saying, guys, the society was strong because we can interact with each other in person, not on Zoom. Education is not just about material. You can go watch a video. You don't need me. Education is about interactions. Education is about verbal interaction, but also emotional interaction and reading body language. There's so many levels. There's energy. Many of you, I think, probably believe in energy, right? I believe in it. If somebody walks in the room and is charismatic, everybody turns around and looks at them. What's going on? That's part of human interaction. That's missing on Zoom. So I understand, this was short notice and you came on Zoom, and that's fine. But be aware, if you want to communicate well with someone, ideally it's person, and with your kid even more. And you want to teach your children, by the way, not to communicate through text. And then the current generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, like to communicate by text. That's a terrible way to communicate because you don't know how the other person's reacting. I've had kids who break up with their girlfriends, or kids who tell them I'm going to commit suicide on text, and then they expect the other person to react appropriately. You have no idea. The other person, I've seen kids become so anxious when their friend didn't respond, and what happened was the parent told them to put the phone away. But you don't know. You start fantasizing. And so another thing you might do for your children, and again, I would like to answer your questions, is to tell them, explain to them that this is why you're telling them to put the phone away, which brings one other important point. You may know better than your children. I say may because if you don't listen carefully to your children, you may not know what's better. But let's assume you know exactly what's going on and you know the solution. That doesn't mean it's up to you to solve. In fact, again, the psychologist yesterday was saying, well, here's what you could do as a parent to help your child, teach them this, teach them that. I didn't hear help your child help themselves. And I will tell you, teenagers do not respond well when you say, you may not be on the internet more than 2 hours a day because it's hurtful. You must go outside to exercise. You may not watch stupid YouTube videos. When you say things like that, and I see too many parents doing that, the kid, of course, ignores you. Why shouldn't they ignore you? First of all, they don't know why. Second of all, you're trying to control them, which is true. You're seeing them going the wrong way and you don't want them to do it. But part of being a successful human being is learning to make appropriate choices. And if you make the wrong choice, that's fine as well, as long as it's not life-threatening, because you learn the hard way. Learning through mishaps, through failures, is a great way to develop resilience. Resilience means that when you go to school without your parent watching you, you do well. So everybody knows you get hurdles in life, right? And some people fall apart. And the parents are worried, oh, they're going to fall apart, so I'm going to make sure they're not going to make any mistakes. Well, that's the surefire way of making sure they're going to fail. Well, not making sure, but increasing the chances they're going to flop the first time they get challenged. So you need to understand that as part of growing up, messing up, not getting the results you want, getting a B, it's not only is not the end of the world, it's a good thing. If I could program for each of your straight A students to get a B once, I'd program it. Why? Because it would be horrific for them. They might try to fall apart. And better to happen at home so you can help pick up the pieces, not solve it for them, but say, I believe in you, you can still recover. And then they develop resilience. I interviewed a woman, her name is Sally Raymond. I mentioned her name because she's on my radio show. If you're interested in looking at the podcast, at Centerpoint hypnosis.com is the website, centerpointhypnosis.com. Dan can give you the link.
Well,
And it says radio show. If you scroll down, I interviewed her fairly recently. She's an 82-year-old therapist. I'm telling you this because it's on the radio. It's not any patient confidentiality. And she had a brilliant son who was traumatized as a youngster. You can hear his story on the interview. But he was brilliant. He was top in his class. He graduated high school at 14. He went to a Carnegie Mellon program for the best and the brightest, and was the only one out of 33 kids to graduate from this program. Something's wrong with that, by the way. A program should not be so very intense that most people drop out. But he came out on top. He graduated. He got a great job. Was doing well in his first job. He went to the second job, and he was doing well. And one day his manager called him in and said, we're going to transfer you to another department. Why? What did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong. We have to transfer you to another department. But why? Nothing, just want to transfer you. That day, this young man committed suicide. Why? His mother thinks, as you'll hear on the radio show, he never failed academically. He always succeeded. It was always easy. He was always top of his class. And he didn't even fail. The reason they switched departments, which he didn't know, is the company was bought out, but it wasn't public knowledge yet. But he assumed he failed. And with his background, and then he had some trauma, he thought he had trouble in other areas in his life. He just couldn't stand anymore. This is what happens when your child doesn't have resilience. Okay, so I know you all want to help your children, that's why you're here. So you want to help build resilience. How do you do that? You have them have experiences. You let them do their own experiences. You don't force them to do it, because that's not resilience. They're going to just be resentful with you. You have them have the experience. And if they flop, terrific. That's just for you to realize. It's good. You want at least a few flops so they can pick themselves up. All right, that's my introduction. You want to take over more, talk about Hattie, and then what I'd like to do is answer your questions. So think about what you'd like to know, and I can talk to you about medicine, mental health, whatever you like.
okay. Thank you, Dr. Anbar. Wow, I'm very engaged. So, okay, so I'm gonna spend, I think most parents know about Hattie. Just Google us, Hattie Education. We're in San Diego, and this is our center. Okay, no, we have 2 parents in person, so.
I don't think we see them anymore. You got the.
Oh, okay, let me see. Hold on. Can you see? Yeah. Okay. So, okay, very good. Yeah, we're in San Diego. Actually, our office is very close to yours.
Yes.
Within like a mile or so.
Yes.
Very close. Okay. We're very close to UCSD, Qualcomm, and Kamal Valley. Okay. So You can Google us. We do education. We did start online because during COVID, help most of our teachers, help our teachers to help students. Our main service is college counseling, but along with college counseling, we have variety of services. Okay, so let you Google my name itself, Dan Pan. I should have introduced, but assuming most of you guys know me, so you can LinkedIn me. No worries, all is good. And then this is what we provide for college counseling. Not gonna go through the details. Today's not about this. And this, in addition to college counseling, what we support for a variety of service, for research, community service. So I want to actually move to our website, which newly launched. It's Hattie.org. It's still right now, it's not official. The organization is official. The website need to move to the Hattie.org. Right now it's kind of like a placeholder. But with all said, the reason we launched this is to help immigrants, and most of the parents sitting here assume are immigrants' parents, and building the relationship between immigrants' parents and the students. So we have 3 missions. And the first is strengthen the relationship. To strengthen that relationship, we have high school students who develop an app that will help the parents and students communicate with each other and do some activity. We're also going to upskill, improve the use in the AI era, the skills during the AI era, because a lot of work is going to be done by AI. So what shall we do? And then it's really all integrated and it's reduce parents' anxiety. And so here we go. That's our board members. I'm very grateful. We have Dr. Anbar here with us. And last week when we launched our Berkeley Center, Dr. Du, Angie Du was online. And we 3 all together sitting on the board. We're gonna drive and with those 3 initiatives, okay? So with that, let me see, here go. Okay, so this is the one that our high school student writing senior student, Madera. She was on in Berkeley with us, and she launched this app and to help really help the immigrant parents, because a lot of immigrants parents here, you all know English, but we don't assume all the parents know really English. They're Latino, all the native language, and then Chinese, Japanese, right? So she built this to help parents writing letters in their native language. Of course, AI can translate. And then also the parents, just like Dr. Anbar said, parents and the students spend time together, talking, eye-to-eye contact, and do some activity. So we are also recruiting students, high school students for volunteer. And then lastly, before I give the microphone to Dr. Anbar, is Dr. Anbar just told me he is MD, yes, Chicago-trained medical doctor, and then Harvard residency. Actually, it's my children's pediatric doctor who's also trained in Harvard with Dr. Anbar, recommended Dr. Anbar many years ago. Since then, Dr. Anbar has helped pretty much a lot of my, the whole community, many of them, okay? So, so he told me a project that he will allow high school students and college students shadow him for medical practice, for hypnosis, or mental health practice. And that shadow program, we're gonna maybe, I can get more details, but it will be through Hattie with all the students here. We're gonna organize it, okay? So that's one of the things that Dr. Anbar just mentioned that to me. I really appreciate it. So I will give the microphone back to Dr. Anbar. I will stop sharing. And okay, so how do you want to start here? Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to say I'm also an immigrant, not from China.
Okay.
But I'm an immigrant from Israel.
Okay.
And when I came here when I was 9, I didn't know English.
I see.
So I faced some of the same things that some of your children faced. In those days, in the late 60s, there were very few services to help immigrant families.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to learn by the seat of your pants, which you learn fast that way. So I know some of the challenges. I was quite a loner for like 5 or 6 years because I was a strange kid. But by the time I got to college, I did, I was integrated. I think I was pretty resilient as a kid. Some of the kids, and I know many of the kids in this community because Dan didn't send them to me. So some are not so resilient, and then you have to teach them resilience. So let me tell you about one particular topic. I think it'd be really good to cover for all of you. Then really I want to answer your questions. I should tell you that I wrote a couple of books that this one especially, The Life Guide for Teens, and I think maybe you have a link to it somewhere. It covers a lot of what I'm talking today, and it's divided into chapters about topics that bother kids: anxiety, fear, anger, how to be a better student, how to be a better athlete, how to succeed in college, how to deal with grief, how to deal with peers, how to deal with parents. And you don't have to read the whole book as a teenager. Just pick up a chapter that you think you want to learn something about. And every chapter has several tools that the teens can use. So this is not, education is not passive. It's again, another problem I have with Zoom because you're listening to me. I don't like that. We'll have people in the room, we'll talk to them. And I'll answer your questions, but there's three parts to education. This is true as an educator, a doctor, but also as a parent. The first part is to convey information. Okay, that's number one. And we do that pretty well. The second part, we don't do so well as parents or as healthcare providers to make sure the child heard it. So one way that you can find out what your child heard is ask them, what did you hear? And you'll be surprised when they won't say what you said. And don't get upset then. If they only heard, you'll find if you give a long talk like I'm giving right now, you're going to only retain. In fact, we'll do that in a minute. We'll ask, what did you hear? You'll see. People don't hear everything. They hear a couple of things. And if you're trying to make a bunch of points, you want to make sure that they heard the important ones. So have your child repeat, what did you hear? Not in an accusatory tone. And if they say, I don't remember, then you need to repeat it, but more simply. Because your job as an educator, as a parent, parents are educators too, of course, is to convey information in a way that the child can digest. So that's the second part of education, is making sure that the child understood. Now, in our educational system in schools, they give tests. But the way schools are often structured, it doesn't really test understanding, it tests knowledge. Albert Einstein said, any fool can have knowledge. And with AI, just look it up on Google. But understanding, you can only do by working through problems. And so that the schools often don't ask for working through problems. They ask, tell me the date that somebody died, or tell me the name of the war. That's just knowledge. That's just memorization. You need some memorization, but that's not education. So ask your child, what did you hear? And if they didn't hear much, repeat. Now your child then responds, what do you think of what I told you? Let's say you have a discussion, and use of social media is not good for you. And if anybody wants me to cover why it's not good, it's not just, there's a lot of things that maybe people didn't realize. So you're giving the child, here's why I think social media is not good. Now tell me, what did you hear? Let's say they heard what you said, what you wanted to convey. Now you say, so what do you think we should do about it? Not take it upon yourself. Too many parents, and again, I'm generalizing, so it doesn't apply to everyone, but too many parents in your community feel it's their responsibility the child does well. And I say, my response is, and I hope that this is not culturally insensitive, this is not China, this is the United States. You want the child to succeed in the United States. In the United States, we don't tell you what to do as much as encourage you to do your own thing. So it's not your job as a parent here, from my perspective, and if you disagree, please speak up. I won't be offended. I want to hear what you have to say. It's not your job to make sure your child does well. It's your job is to give your child an environment in which they can do well. And if your child seems to be in trouble, depressed, anxious, offer choices, offer solutions, but your child gets to pick. Your child gets to pick. So, and why is that? Because if you force the child is going to be resentful and is going to focus their energy on being resentful to you as opposed to doing what you hope they would do. So you want to, I think most of your kids are really smart. These are the ones I met. You're all smart parents. You're in this group you want to know how to help my child. Great. Let them solve their own issues. And if, like, for example, procrastinating child, why, I don't, you as a parent, I think that doing homework and on time is a good idea because you can think about it longer and You don't have to worry about playing video games and do it at the last minute, do it fast, and you don't forget to turn in your homework assignments. It's a really good practice. And the kid says, well, video games are more important to me than homework. I've seen that in this community as well. And then you say, why? Well, they're fun and homework is boring. And then you want to have a discussion. Why is homework important? And sometimes homework is really not important. I think sometimes, especially for the bright kids, it is a waste of time. And then you might want to commiserate. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a waste of time. But in our society, if you don't follow these rules, it's going to hurt you. What do you think? So then you'll have the kids say, I don't care. And then you say, well, okay, these are the consequences. Now, some children, including my own, when he was 15, 16, my oldest, wouldn't turn in his homework, just would not. He would get it done and not turn it in. And this was in my early days of doing counseling and hypnosis, which again is using your imagination to help yourself. And I asked his subconscious, your inner self, and I think that's a great tool, by the way, if a child doesn't know why they're anxious or depressed or can't explain the behavior, learn to listen to themselves. He said to me, the subconscious said, I don't turn in my homework because I think I'm stupid. And if I turn it in and got a 70, everybody else will know I'm stupid. I'd rather get a 0. Now you can say that's a weird kind of logic, but he's not the only one who's told me that. The reason you shouldn't do therapy with your children is one time I got in an argument with him of his homework, and I said to him in anger, I know why you're not doing your homework. It's because you don't want people to know you're stupid. And he said, I never told you that. And that's the last time I did hypnosis you shouldn't do therapy with your children, but you want to listen to them and you want to address their concerns. And then be a team. This is for the teenagers, parents of teenagers. Be a team with them and have them pick a solution. And if you think it's not a good solution, say, I don't think it's a great solution, but I'm going to leave the choice up to you. It's your life, and we'll do it your way, and we'll revisit in 2 or 3 weeks and see how it's working. Most of the kids in this community are pretty smart, as I said, and they can figure out this is not working, and they'll appreciate being given the opportunity to make their own choices. Contrast that with what I see too often. The parent says, I'm going to tell you to do what's right because I know it's right, and that's it. And the kid then gets angry and gets alienated and becomes sullen, and you've lost communication. Oftentimes teens and parents don't get along well, unfortunately. I think a lot of it is because they don't communicate. Give an example. This is not from a child in this community, but I remember this one child I knew really well, nice kid, nice mom. One day he came in, he was 16, he says, my mom doesn't trust me and she lies about me. What happened? Well, we were going on a trip. She thinks she told me what to pack. She did not tell me that. And then I packed wrong. And then she complained to my grandmother that I didn't pack right. And that's not fair. She's lying about me to cover up her own inadequacies. This is a really nice kid and a nice mom. But the kids tell me what they think, right? And then he said, and also she keeps asking if I'm doing my homework. I told her I do, but she doesn't trust me. Okay. Have you told your mom this? No. Why not? Well, I don't want to raise a ruckus. Okay. I said, fortunately, I'm in counseling with him. I said, that doesn't sound like your mom. Can we bring your mom in here and talk about it? He said, yes. So I bring mom in, and he said what he thought. She said, I did so tell you what to pack. I remember we were at the dinner table and you were there and your girlfriend was there and I told you what to pack. And the kid said, oh yeah, whoops, sorry. And then the relationship was fine. I'm convinced that if I wasn't there and he didn't tell me, they would start mistrusting each other. And when you mistrust people, you start seeing things that aren't necessarily there, or you interpret things in a way like his mother asked you to do homework, rather than feeling it, it's that she's just reminding him to be supportive. He viewed it that she doesn't trust him. And this happens, I think, so often with parents and teenagers. When I'm in there intervening like this, the parents and children seem to get along much better. So I encourage you to listen to your teen. Now, here's another hint. Memory is not accurate. If you have a clear-cut memory of an event, That does not mean that's when it happened. The way memory works is that the brain, unless you have a photographic memory, which is very unusual, the brain remembers one or two items, and the rest of the stuff in the memory is put in by your subconscious to make it seem plausible. And they've done research on this. For example, and now we just had 9/11 2 days ago. On the original 9/11 in 2001, actually 9/12, so what is it, 24 years and 1 day ago, psychologists interviewed a bunch of college students of what happened the previous day. And they wrote it down. So they said this, what happened. A year later, they went back to the same college students and said, what do you remember of 9/11? They told stories and details, except they weren't true. They didn't match what they said the day after 9/11 on 9/12. When they were shown what they wrote on 9/12, they went into denial. They said, no, I must have been in such shock. I just didn't remember right. But I remember clearly what happened. The author of the book that I read about this, he said on 9/11, he remembers he had 3 graduate students in his lab. He remembers what all said and very detailed. Except later found out one of the graduate students was not in the lab that day, was on vacation. How did he have such a clear memory? Because his brain put it in, it was plausible. I've seen that in myself. I've written a couple of books, I'm writing another book, and I take notes throughout my career, and I tell stories about patients, like I've told you a few patient stories already. When I went back to my original notes, it's not the way I remember. In fact, this is kind of funny. In this book, Changing Children's Lives with Hypnosis, which just tells the story of how I got into counseling and teaching kids about the mind, I have a story about my friend Lois. And the story goes like this. So this story is in the context of, this is something I teach children about using positive talk, setting your intentions, okay? When you tell yourself, I want to succeed, you're much likely to succeed if you say, I'm a failure. Because your brain's like a computer. It hears what you say. If you say, I got to be, life is going to be over now, it's not worth living, you're going to start believing that. Okay, so again, you don't want to tell your kids, you must be positive, but you want to be aware that this is at play. If you want them to read something neutral, you can read, again, this book, chapter 1 is all about positive talk and how to, the kind of speech that's helpful. For example, as a doctor, I would never say, oh, this is going to hurt a little bit if I'm going to do a blood test, because I'm introducing the idea of hurt. I might say, I'm going to help you become more comfortable. I'm not going to say, oh, the school year is going to be really hard this year. I'm going to say, we have to find ways, it'd be great if you found ways that school can be made easier this year. Any negative thing you can say in a positive way, and you're sort of programming your mind or your child's mind, even as a parent, without telling you, don't tell me you're doing that, but you want to teach them to do it for themselves. So when they messed up in baseball, don't say, oh, I'm a terrible player, I cost my team to win, which feels terrible. Say, I want to become better, I want to help my team win the next time. It makes a world of difference. So in this book, I tell a story. It's the parking story to show positive talk. I tell the story, my friend Lois came from Boston, came to California, to La Jolla, and I told her I'm going to take her to a restaurant. And but be forewarned, in La Jolla, it's tough to find parking because all the tourists are here. And so we went, and Lois said to me, I never have trouble finding parking. There's always parking wherever I go. Okay. So we went down La Jolla, and there was parking everywhere. Parked in front of the restaurant. And she went back to Boston, and I was with my kids in La Jolla, and I said, I was having trouble finding parking, and one of my kids popped up and said, well, if Aunt Lois was here to find parking. So I said, Aunt Lois, help us find parking, and there was parking. So I parked, and I'm saying, what's going on here? And I said, this must be positive talk. So now I go down to La Jolla, I said, I'm going to find parking, and I always find parking, virtually always. How does this magic work? I don't know if some of you have had this experience, but I've had other people say, oh yeah, I have a parking fairy in my house. How does this work? If you believe that you're going to find parking, you're going to become more patient, and you're going to give yourself more of a chance. So like La Jolla Shores is a very small parking lot with a very large beach. At summertime, 4 in the afternoon, the beach is full, the parking lot's full. I'm with my kids, and I say, I'm going to find parking. And I go into the parking lot, and parking appears. Why? Because you're more patient. So you give yourself more of a chance. There's also, by the way, a non-scientific explanation, which is karma. You throw out positivity, you get it back. Throw out negativity, you get it back. I'm telling this story first to explain positive talk. The second thing I want to tell you is that this doesn't just apply for parking, it applies for the rest of life. If you believe you can be successful, you're going to keep going. That's resilience, right? And if you believe you're going to be failure, you'll quit before you start. That's the opposite of resilience. The reason I'm telling you this story now is the story with Lois, as it turned out. Well, what I did was I wrote the book and I sent it to Lois. I mentioned her in the book. She said, I've never been to La Jolla. What? I remember you being in La Jolla. I wasn't in La Jolla. We talked about going to La Jolla, but we had to cancel. I said, huh? And I went to look at I didn't believe her. I had to go look at my emails. And it's true, she canceled. And I'm thinking, how did my memory come up with that story? Well, I remember we were in Arizona now. I mean, this is not true either. I don't know. I remember I was in Arizona and she was going to go to La Jolla and I told her we won't find parking. And she said, I always find parking. And then my kids told me, oh, we know the lowest parking story from 20 years beforehand. She's been a family friend. My memory got it all mixed up. I don't have a particularly mixed up memory. This is all of us. I'm just giving you an example. So when you're sure something happened that way, don't be so sure, be humble. And if your child has a different memory, don't argue about it. Explain to them, memories are, you both could be wrong. You don't even know. There's no point arguing. So many families, yes, you said this. No, I didn't. Yes. Just let's move on. Let's talk about what do you want to do in the future. So you want to explain this to your child. Don't do it. We're not going to talk about it anymore. Explain to your child why you're not going to talk about it anymore. Have them buy into it. And some kids are really stubborn. I remember exactly. Okay. So I worked with a kid recently who says, I know exactly what's wrong with me. I know exactly what to do. It's like sophomore, college sophomores think they know it all, right? Sophomore means know it all. I said, okay. I said, nobody knows exactly what's bothering him and exactly what you do about it. But, if your kid is like that, okay, then we'll assume it's what I would do is I wouldn't argue with them. If they're not willing to accept some humility, as long as you show humility, because I think the fathers in this community tend to be more rigid. Again, I'm making stereotypes. There's always exceptions, but I've also found fathers to be very open when you sort of don't challenge, don't say you're a bad father, but say, here's the different way to communicate with your child. And then oftentimes things melt and they get along so well because they respect each other. So in terms of discussing things with your children, accept what they say is valid for them. If it's not what you remember, okay, maybe I'm wrong, maybe you're wrong, we don't know. If you have a child that says, I'm always right, that's a different problem. And then that might be a child, if you can't help them become a little bit less. Well, I guess if they were always right, okay, we'll do it your way. Let's assume you're right. What do you suggest? I'll make a suggestion. Okay, let's do it. And let's talk in 2 or 3 weeks and see how it's working. So the principles of good communication is, first of all, do it when you're both calm. If your child is angry or you're angry, communication shuts down. Okay. Why? Because if one of you is angry, the other one's not listening. The other one's becoming defensive. So good communication is when you're both calm. Number 2, and sometimes the child does something wrong. You want to tell them right away what did it wrong. Well, if your intention is to help them do better, don't tell them right there, especially if you're angry. And don't start giving punishments you take back later, because then they won't even take you seriously. So when you're both calm. The second thing is listen carefully to what they're saying, repeat back what they're saying, ask them to repeat what you're saying, and explain why you're doing it. You want to improve communication. When you start doing this, you'll be surprised how poor the communication might be to start with. And then problem solve together. Skip the arguments of what happened in the past. If you have different recollections, people have different recollections. That's fine. How do we solve this in the future? You follow those rules, your communication will be better, and you could be better helper in terms of problem solving with your child, not for them, but with your child. All right, I have lots more to tell you, but I'd love to get a question. I don't know if somebody has a question here, or if somebody online wants to raise their hand and ask a question. You can also put it in the chat if you like. I'll wait a moment. Oh, by the way, silence is really good, interacting with your child. Sometimes I see children who are hesitant to say because they're worried they'll say something wrong. And then the parent jumps in. You mean this? Do you mean that? I'm sort of doing that right now. I'm going to be silent in a minute. I want to explain to you. Silence is fine. So you ask your child a question and you just be silent for a minute and see what happens. Okay, I'm going to practice what I preach.
I have a question.
Is that sin? Okay,
Yes. I want to ask for your advice on how to let the teenagers to talk with us, because they don't really like to talk to us. And if you ask a question, they give you like one word answer and that's it.
Right. So often that happens, and I talk to teens, I ask them, why is that? Because if I tell my parent what I really think, they're going to yell at me, they're telling me I'm wrong, they're going to tell me what to do. I don't want to hear that. So they try to minimize communication with you. So the way you get teens to talk is to say, I'd like to hear what's on your mind. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to listen. And then sometimes that's hard for some parents, especially when a teen is saying something you think is really wrong. And you want to tell them right away, listen, give your children the respect they need. I don't say deserve. Some parents say they don't deserve my respect. They're acting horribly. They have to earn my respect. That shuts down communication. So you want to listen, and you can ask a clarifying question. Like I deal with teens who are steal a car. What was going on? Don't start yelling, that's against the law, you can get arrested. Don't start talking about the consequences. First, understand, why did you steal the car? Well, I wasn't really stealing, I was just borrowing it for a few hours. Well, but is it yours? No. So sometimes it's silly. I mean, from our perspective, they should know better, but they don't. I asked a 14-year-old, I think it was a member of this community, I think, he may not have been, but I asked him, why do your parents yell at you? They enjoy seeing me suffer. Okay, but that's what, and so in this country, we have people who have a distorted view of reality and they act crazily. Our teens some of them have a distorted view of reality, but if you're going to help them by yelling at them, it just reinforces in this example that you just want to make them feel miserable, in this particular kids. We have to talk about, well, maybe they want your best interest, and maybe they don't realize how they can communicate to you better, but they love you. I have to go through that. No, they don't. They're acting so mean to me. Well, this is a 14, more immature. And by the way, teenagers mature in different rates. They could be really intellectually advanced and emotionally behind. So a 16-year-old can have the intellect of a 20 and the emotional maturity of a 10. And you can't treat them like 16, because if they're emotionally mature like 10 and treat them like they're 16 or 20, not going to work. So you've got to match yourself with your teen. When I see them in therapy, I match myself with a teen. When I deal with teens, anybody actually, I take whatever they say at face value, including if they see ghosts or spirits or whatever. Okay, that's interesting. Tell me about it. Whatever, I don't say that's not real. And it's true. If they say, all my friends hate me, why do you think they hate you? What evidence do you have? Well, this and this and this. But there'd be another reason for this. No, they hate me. Well, can I tell you some other possibilities? No. Okay. Well, if you want to talk about it again, I'm here. You don't have to solve it right away, because again, in your community, a lot of the parents, I think it's great. You guys really care about your kids, which is a lot better in other communities. The kids are neglected, but you can go overboard when you want to solve problems for your kids and right away. It's a process. I give this metaphor. When your child was a toddler, they fell down many times before they learned to walk. And did you yell at them each time they fell down? I hope not. Probably not, because you knew that learning to walk is a process. And falling down was part of learning how to walk, because then the brain said, oh, I can't walk this way. That's how you learn. The same is true for your teens. So messing up, not following the right steps is a process. That's how they learn. So just be supportive, be there to help them if they need it, be them as a sounding board. But to improve communication, you get the one-word answer. I think it's you don't understand. I got that too. Oh, like I told my daughter years ago, you can get straight A's, you're very smart. No, Dad, that was just your days. Now people get B's all the time. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I know that's not true. I see kids who are straight A kids, but that wasn't the right approach. I was younger in my career. So you can ask, is it important? I mean, today I would say, okay, so you see many kids getting B's. And, to me, the important thing, by the way, is not your grade, but is the effort, right? If you put in effort, that's great. I don't care about this. This is useless. Okay, I hear you. And I kind of agree. A lot of stuff now is pretty boring and not particularly useful for your career as an engineer. What do you need to know psychology for, or whatever? And then I'll have a talk about them, that part of education, the most important part is being able to think things out, not memorize, and that the more experiences you have, the more ability you'll be able to solve problems in the future. And I often talk about my experience. In college, I was a biology major, a psychology major. I worked in journalism. I got into religion, to Judaism, and never in my life did I think that I could combine all those interests, which happened 20 years later, into counseling and hypnosis. So I write, it's medicine, psychology, it's spiritual for me, but I didn't know. I didn't even know it existed. And so that's what I tell the children. You don't even know. So get a broad education, play a musical instrument if you're willing, if it makes sense to you. You want to be a video game program, great, and learn about coding and learn about art and learn about how to get psychology so you can get people to teach them whatever you want through the video game, but work with their interests. Don't say, oh, you can't make money that way, or, YouTubers is just fake. That's not going to resonate. If you say that kind of thing to your child, even if you're right, they're going to feel like you didn't hear them or you don't value their opinions. So the way you get these kids to talk is to really listen. If it doesn't make sense to you, then don't say it doesn't make sense to me. Tell me more. Tell me more. And they'll tell you, because your kids are bright in general. They're going to tell you. And, I had one kid, 8-year-old. I have to be careful because this is a small community. Anyway, the parents didn't realize his abilities and he couldn't verbalize. He's 8. And it took a while. But once they realized that he could address properly, the only way you're going to tell it on your own is to listen carefully. Other questions?
I have a question. How to walk a fine line between being strict and permissive? Because luckily my son had went through his rebelling age, and now we can talk very good, very smoothly. But my daughter, she's kind of stubborn and insistent, such as in the morning, how to choose what kind of clothing outfit sometimes could be an argument between us. She insisted to be wearing very short pants, but I think, oh, it's not appropriate in school. So how to handle this situation?
So, and she's a teenager at this point?
No, she's only 8, almost
Only
8,
8.
9 years old. Yeah.
So the rules are different a little bit with a preteen or elementary school kids with a teen than a teen. With an 8-year-old, you want to explain why you think it's inappropriate. You may feel uncomfortable saying why it's inappropriate, but if they don't understand, they're just going to think you're unreasonable. So you got to put it in a way that, well, you could ask them, why do you think I care? And see what she says. She says, you're mean. She could. Well, I don't like being mean. I want to help you. Why do you think, how does telling you what to wear help you? So have a discussion at an 8-year-old level. She'll give you some reason, some answer to how she feels. Maybe you're just from your generation, and the kids in my generation, they all wear like this. You don't get it. She might say at 8. Certainly an older teen might say that. And then the response to that is, again, this is better maybe for a teenager, but your generation does a lot of harmful things to themselves. They don't even realize. And I'm concerned for you that you wear a short skirt, it's going to create problems. And again, you have to match it to the child, but there's problems, you know. People look at your nonverbal communication and assume things, right? My wife is here. This is Hannah. If I can, if you can see, that's my wife, Hannah.
I
Are you there? Yeah, there you go. So my wife and I talk about, we go to our synagogue, we see these teenage girls wearing short dresses. They can't even sit down without holding the dress down. It's horrendous to us, but I guess their parents don't even, I don't know. I don't even know how that happens exactly, but I would talk about, in our family, we're modest, and you're part of our 8-year-old, you're part of our family. When you dress short, you reflect our family. And I think that's a cultural thing, but it's cultural in my culture as well. And I think for an 8-year-old, that's fine. For a 14-year-old who could care less about your culture, that's your culture, it's not mine. Okay, well then talk about the consequences of leaving the culture. Some of your kids will say, oh, and change their mind. Some of your kids say, I don't care. And then you might want to talk some more. Why don't you care? Or here's a story from outside this community. One of my patients, Jewish, and his mother came in and said, he's been the victim of anti-Semitism. Victim, what happened? At school, some kid made an anti-Semitic slur. I'm sure in your community you get the anti-Chinese slurs. And so what happened then? He went to the principal and complained and got the other kid in trouble. And I said, he's not a victim. He confronted anti-Semitism. He did a really good job. So what this is called is reframing. So sometimes we label ourselves, or the parent labels a child, and then they believe you. If he believed he was a victim to me means powerless. So if he believes he's the victim, then he expects other people to fix it for him, or he's powerless. One of a therapist recently said, you're suffering. That's an assumption. It's one thing, if the patient's saying, I'm suffering, I want to know, what do you mean by that? You know, suffering to me means you have no solution, perhaps, or it's really horrible. Is it really suffering? So be careful with the words. So this kid, the reason I'm telling this story is he's very bright. He said, I know what, I'll just stop being Jewish. I'll become Christian. That'll solve the problem. And I said, okay, I can follow that logic. I didn't say, it's okay. I said, well, can you think of a reason you want to stay Jewish? No. Now, he grew up in a home that didn't emphasize Judaism, which is common among Jewish families. That's our issue in our community. And I said to him, well, I like being Jewish because the Jewish people have contributed to world history. We've contributed to the idea of Sabbath and a lot of Jewish Christian values. By the way, I think the Chinese culture is amazing. I think there's so much stuff. I teach Lao Tzu, and I guess Buddha is more Hindu, but the Eastern culture is amazing. They also have their strengths. So I talked about why I'm proud to be Jewish, and he said, okay, I want to be Jewish. 2 minutes spiel. And now he's my student now. 2 years, he comes to synagogue every day, every week to learn, because he wants to learn. So when your child wants to reject your culture, if that happens, tell them why you are proud of your culture. And if they still want to reject it, ultimately it's their choice. I mean, you insisting. I remember another parent who was staunchly Christian or Catholic, and the kid was 17, didn't want to follow that religion, but the mother insisted because she knew it was, she knew that was the right thing. I said, well, the kid, it's a choice, whether you follow religion is a choice. And if you insist, that makes it less likely your child's going to want to follow that rule. The parent didn't want to hear that. So I would urge you, again, if I'm religious myself, I think that's cool, but with a teenager, you have to understand it's their choice. And if they choose not to do that, that's on them, not on you. You didn't do anything wrong. Your job is to let them be aware and let them choose. That's at least my philosophy. Some people will disagree with that, so just sharing what I think.
Thank you. I think if we want to persuade, possibly the result gonna be not good, but just let them choose freely, it's gonna be better.
And if you think they're making the wrong choice, you can tell them, I think you're making the wrong choice, but it's your choice. And then check with them. A great movie to watch with your kids and for yourself is Kung Fu Panda, the cartoon. I loved that, just the first one. The other ones are stupid. The first Kung Fu Panda has a lot of great teaching. And one of the points from that I talk about a lot to kids and their parents is, I don't know if you remember the story that Master Shifu is training this giant panda in karate, and there's this evil tiger named Tai Ling, I think, Tai Lung, and he's in jail, and Master Shifu is worried that Tai Lung go free. So he sends his goose to check up on it, and he checks this possible jail he can't break out of. The tiger is tied down, he's 100 feet below the ground, there's a million guards, and the goose is happy. The tiger can't get out. As he flies back home, a feather drops from the goose, and the tiger uses the feather to unlock his box and gets out. The moral of this story is sometimes your worries cause the problem you're trying to solve. And there's a lot of truth in that. If you worry about something, you can sometimes manifest it. So be careful.
Absolutely.
Dan, you want to say something?
I agree with that. And I love the story too. I use that all the time because I'm half disabled. So I always think I can find, especially in Berkeley, you know, the parking.
Worse than La Jolla, probably.
Worse than La Jolla.
Other questions?
Maybe I have a related question about not talking to the parents. So very often, I think at least I have a high school kid who just comes home. We're all at work and still do their thing and close their door. I mean, she does well. Her homework, I think, all submitted. Her grades are great, but we don't know what the whole thing. We don't know what's going on. We don't know how long we should keep the internet on. Or they should just, right now it's free, you can just use it, whatever. But we know some parents control the time they use internet, or control, if you're using internet, you should be sitting with me. There are all kinds of ways people are doing this. What's your take on this? We just don't know. Are they always doing homework? Are they doing, what are they doing?
Well, great question. And I messed up with my fourth child when I didn't monitor his use of internet enough, in retrospect. But I was a naive parent. The internet this was how many years ago now? 8, 10 years. First of all, let's go over the problems with internet. And I want to talk about the problem. AI can be really helpful, but I think it's going to be really hurtful as well. So I want to go over with you. And you want to, again, not impose this on your child, but have a discussion. And most children in this community, when I talk to them, they get it. Especially the middle to late teens, where it becomes more relevant. So what's the problem with the internet? First of all, you got social media. Okay, let's open this up. What's the problem with social media? What do you guys know about social media? Anybody?
We heard a talk from this lady, Jane. She's a SDSU faculty. Jane, I can't remember. She came to give a talk about this. It's heavily associated with depression and lots of the issues since the internet or since the social media becomes a issue.
Right, so
maybe. Yeah.
We know that social media is associated with depression, anxiety, suicide, lots of bad things. But why? What's going on? Because you need to explain this to your teen, by the way. If you want to restrict or have them restrict you, they have to understand. So why does social media? They think social media is great. I make my friends there. I interact with my friends there. That's where I find out about other people, interesting things. I learn so much from YouTube. What's wrong with that? Dan wants to say.
Compare yourself with others constantly. And then your self-esteem is being impacted.
Okay, so that's correct. That's one of the problems. So when you're doing teens in general don't really understand themselves. And so the way they decide if they're good or bad, who they are, is by how is comparing themselves with others and also getting feedback from others. And because, again, here we are on Zoom as opposed to out there, that's your community, the Zoom community. And they look for the likes, the thumbs up. And sometimes they do really stupid things because that's what gets the most likes, right? And they see how things are beautiful out there, and it's not really real, but they think it's real and think everybody's happy, and then they get depressed. So that's one reason. What's the other problems with social media? There's multiple reasons.
Addictive.
Are biased.
You said biased?
Addictive.
Addictive. Okay, why is social media addictive?
Because they keep pushing things related to maybe what you just said or what you just clicked.
Correct.
And it's a way to make money, basically.
Correct. And it's addictive because it releases dopamine, it makes pleasureful. And same thing with video games. You want it, everybody seeks pleasure, even us adults, right? And teens, they have it in their phones. This is true of pornography, by the way, and social media, and video games. So it's built to give you pleasure, and we seek pleasures as humans, and it's right there on your phone. So the problem is that when you're not exposed to it, you feel like you're going withdrawal. And real life doesn't give you as many dopamine hits, if you would, as the social media or pornography. So real life seems duller. In fact, I went to a talk recently where they said that when you have a lot of dopamine all the time from social media, it loses its effect. Teens are deficient in dopamine compared to adults in the first place. I have a theory why that is. And so they keep doing more and more to get that hit of dopamine. And so that's part of the addiction. I should tell you, I've not heard this from anybody else, but I think the reason teens are built to be deficient with dopamine is it makes them take more risks. And I think that leaving home is a lot of risk to it. And if they didn't get enjoyment out of it, they would stay at home. So there's a nature reason that teens, I think, need more risk-taking behavior to feel the same pleasure that we do as adults. But like many other primitive things that are built into us, in current society, we have to be careful because we short circuit. So like we want to eat sweets because there's a lot of calories in it, because in the 500,000 years ago, there wasn't a lot of food around. So you want to eat food that has a lot of calories, which is sweet. We get angry easily because in the old days, if a tiger came in, you better go into your flight or fight response. Otherwise, you're going to be dead. So we have these things that are built into us for hundreds of thousands of years, but in modern society, they hurt us. So if you eat too much, you become overweight. If you become too angry, you get into fights. If you become too anxious, you don't go places. So a lot of what we're dealing with is because an addictive behavior is because we want dopamine, and the phone is easy to use for that. So I would discuss this all with your teen, and most of them, as I said, are bright. Some that are emotionally immature, they may not get it, but the ones who are emotionally mature will understand. Then ask them for a plan. I've done this with teens, and they'll say, well, I want to use my texting twice a day. Okay, fine. Or I want to use it for 2 hours a day. Whatever they say, fine, let's put it into action, and let's review in a couple of weeks. Let's see how you feel. Oftentimes, kids who are not allowed to use video games for a couple of weeks, their behavior improves. But if you as a parent, I'm going to restrict your video game playing, and I'm going to make sure that you don't hurt yourself, the teen just gets mad at you and they haven't learned a lesson at all. Now, sometimes you could say it backfires. I don't think so. I remember one kid said, my parents think I'm addicted. I don't think I'm addicted. And he was 17. I said, well, I believe, I accept at face value. I'm going to tell your parents, stop restricting. And indeed, he was addicted. He was on it 18 hours a day, whatever. Which you could say is bad, but on the other hand, if he didn't discover he was addicted at home as a teenager, what do you think would happen when he went to college? Right? The same thing would have happened. So he went into video game rehab, which didn't work particularly well. He cut off of electronics for several months, and then he still had to struggle for another year before he got his act together. I think, again, my point to you is let your child mess up when they're still at home, so you can help pick up the pieces if they're going to mess up. Sometimes you'll be surprised. They'll do much better, and I've seen that happen too. They'll do much better than you thought they could do as soon as you give them an opportunity. So give them a chance to succeed as well. If you micromanage, if you control the internet and you don't let them control themselves, they never learn. Now, if you get an immature kid, like at one time I was working with a 14-year-old who insisted the way to learn to control my video game use is to control myself. And when I first met him, I said, great. And several months went by and he wasn't controlling himself. I said, it's not working. Yeah, I just have to give me time. I said, we've already done several months. I don't think you're able to do this. He's one of the kids who didn't work well. Couldn't help solve. He actually went to family therapy, and there was family dynamic issues that I wasn't aware of. This was done all on online. So again, I missed, like if I'm talking to a kid, I can't even see their parents sometimes. I don't know how they're reacting. So he needed different kind of therapy than what I could offer. Because what I offer is I work with the kid and said, here, this is what, let's work together. This kid was sure he was right at the ripe age of 14 and wouldn't hear otherwise. So, and also whatever solution you have, if it doesn't work, it's okay. I mean, you want it to work, but like if you want to go to a certain college and you don't get in there, that's okay. You'll go to another college. If you as a parent have a solution or a child has a solution, doesn't work, brainstorm, figure something else out. It'll work out as long as you persist. Today at synagogue, I talked to we have a lot of security, unfortunately, these days at Jewish institutions, unfortunately, because of the times we live in. And I talked to I said to the security guy, why, and tell me your story. Well, I was in the military for a while, and then I was kicked out of high school after 10th grade. I went to the Navy. They made me sure I would go into college. Then I was in the military. Then I was a prison guard. Now I'm in security. Told us his story. And I said, so what, if you have one life lesson to share, what is it? Well, I have severe dyslexia. I said, I took 8 years to finish 4 years of college, but I did. And what the secret to life, he says, persist. Keep going, which I agree. And remember that. So as parents, don't catastrophize. In other words, if your child isn't communicating, you don't say, well, never communicate with me. I don't know if you've heard this story about cats and dogs and teenagers. Teenagers are like cats. They want you to feed them and leave them alone. And when they come 20s, they become like dogs. They want to come and be petted a lot. So keep that in mind that sometimes that works exactly that way. Other questions? Can you give me feedback? When I'm missing again with the Zoom call, I don't know how. And most of your screens are off. I have no idea. Is this going well? Is this what you want? Can I do better for you? Tell me about that.
Before I ask my question, I can give you my feedback.
Thank you.
It's really very helpful. And also the parents ask awesome question, which I happen to have all. Well, my kids have quite a few problem. You know, the internet, what you just said about internet, I totally agree, but I really think he will not listen to me, even I tell him all this bad effect of using internet. In fact, he play video games, but he usually finish homework, and his school academically performance is good. But he just I just feel he played too long, like video games, until like 1 or 2 a.m. He told me he was not like feel sleepy, and some of my friend told me at this age he's 16 years old, like it's common for boys have a lot of energy. I don't know, he also attended some school sports. Usually when he come back from school, he said he was tired, but then he stay up very late, which I don't think is very good for his health and for his brain development. But somehow he just doesn't listen to me. So how, like in this case, what can I do?
Great questions. So first of all, thank you for the feedback. And when you talk to your teens, you also want to ask feedback. How's this working? You can at least watch their body language. Like when I have a patient and they're looking over here when I'm talking to them, they're shutting me out. I read body language. So when you're talking to your teen, you can sometimes tell how they're taking it. But it's also good to ask, don't assume. I have one kid who maintains a very neutral facial expression no matter what. And so I ask him, how are you doing? What are you feeling about what I'm saying? In terms of your specific situation, very common. Does your child know why sleep is important? Can he verbalize this to you?
Pardon? Like, what's your question?
Can he explain to you why sleep is important?
Oh, okay. I explained to him, sleep is important, it's good for his short time memory. You really become, something can stay with him. Like, there's something happen, right? Scientifically, when you sleep, release stress and your brain still develop until 25 years old. Especially what's called the prefrontal part. And so I did take some notes when I read books and tell him, but he just said, I said also, like, it's good for you to can live longer. I also read some book about the longevity, and his argument is, I don't want to live longer, I just want to live more hours when I'm young, other than when I live long hours when I get older. And now, because I sleep less time, that means I live longer every day when I'm young.
So first of all, your child is very smart. Of course, he is. He's really smart. But he's clearly misguided, but he doesn't understand that yet. So your job as a parent there. So it's interesting. I asked you what he would say,
Mm-hmm.
and you was telling me what you found out about. So I guess you heard the part about living longer, but I would want to hear from him. I understand that when I lose sleep, that I'm making it. I'm more likely to become anxious and depressed and have really bad feelings about myself and have a poor social life. Oh, I'm having great social life on video game. Video games, you should understand, like we talked here, social life is also learning how to interact with real life people. And,
Mm-hmm.
So make sure he understands. That's the first step. But I'm assuming he does understand. So now he's like the kid, the 14-year-old who said to me, the only way I'm going to learn to control myself is you give me full control of the video games, which he's demonstrated for months at a time he can't control. At 16, it's a harder problem because he's going to go to college in a couple of years. So he's got to figure it out. You got 2 years to work with him, right? Before he is off to college. When he says, I don't want to live longer, I guess I would explore, is there a reason what do you think the rest of life is about? I would want to talk about this very existential, he's really smart, what he's saying, right? I want to hear about is he afraid of living a long time? But don't give him those, I'm saying that, but don't you say that. What do you think people do when they get older? What is oh, you just work hard. Well, if you find the right vocation, you have fun much of your life. So you have a discussion. So you want to, because I'm sure he doesn't, not considering being a teenager, he's just going to rationalize why he wants to play video games. And then what harm, I would ask, besides sleep, is there any other harm in video games? We talked about being addicted, that the rest of life seems less interesting. But the people who are successful, I assure you, are not playing video games. And don't let them say, oh, yeah, the YouTubers play video games and make lots of money. Sometimes you get that. Then you have to say, well, some do, but just like, there's a few superstar athletes in their sports, most people never get there. And you have to look, if you're really good at art and artistic things, and you have business acumen, and you know how to code, and maybe you could become a YouTuber, video game programmer, but most people don't make money that way. So have a realistic discussion. And if, let's say he doesn't listen because he's addicted to the video games, again, I have to figure out if is he emotionally mature or immature. If he's emotionally mature and choosing to harm himself, it's your life. With my son who wouldn't turn in his homework, I at that point said, okay, it's your life. You want to get the bad grades? I told him, you're not going to get to good school, and here are the consequences. You choose. And the funny thing about my son is at 18, somehow he got accepted to a decent school, and then the light bulb turned on. I didn't do it. It turned on, and he turned himself around. He's a professor at Arizona State University teaching public health. So they do turn themselves around. I don't think I contributed by yelling at, well, when I got mad, that didn't help at all. So I was just, I think backing off is better. I would make, again, with that, but at 16, remember, he has to get his act together before he goes to college, or you're going to be wasting a lot of money in college. Or another thing, you might listen carefully. He might tell you school is useless and it's really boring. It's nothing useful. And if he goes to appropriate educational institution, he will thrive because he's really smart and it'll finally interest him. So again, every child is different. So you want to talk to him. What you don't want to do is dismiss his feeling. Oh, that's silly. You know, you want to live long hours playing video games. That's meaningless. Well, that's not fair because while it's meaningless to you and me, it's very meaningful to him. So you don't want to shut him down. I understand how you feel, but here's some things you may not have considered. When I've worked with teens who've made wrong choices, especially on the spur of the moment, which is different from video games, but spur of the moment, when I asked them what was going on in your mind, nothing, I wasn't thinking. That's a very, very common response. And so then we work in therapy, we work on pausing and thinking things up, because teens can be really smart if they think, when they think. Yeah, so it's not an easy thing, but I would not impose, I wouldn't turn off the internet, because like the kid I told you at 17 was addicted. He didn't even admit he was addicted until his parents let him demonstrate to himself. And sometimes you might be wrong. He may not be addicted. So let him figure it out. Respect him.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's tough love.
I do feel you remind me. There's a few times I was trying to help. For example, he had a long trip, like for 10 days. I help packing. And then he said, "This is my trip." You know, like he doesn't want to take something, and then he choose something else. And you know, like we have different opinions, and he always says, "This is my trip." And then there's other things he'll say, "This is my life." So he has that attitude, which really made it hard for me to give him some suggestions, which I think he make us now making some stupid decision about his life.
So he's right. It is his life. It is his trip. And remember I said earlier, if he makes stupid decisions, let him make them. And then you see what happens. And hopefully he'll flop. I'm saying hopefully he'll flop because he'll learn from that. Like if somebody cheats and they succeed, not so good, because they'll think, I have a kid who used ChatGPT for math for his last 2 years of high school and college, and he wanted to be a computer scientist. I said, you're not being, his parents don't know this. I said, you're not a computer scientist. It's just fantasy. I have kids who want to be superstar athletes, major league players. They don't want to learn how to regulate their emotions. Every superstar athlete knows how to regulate their emotions. That's why they're superstars. No, I don't need it. Okay, fine, whatever. Kids are not realistic. I get that, but you can't make them realistic. And if you force them, they're not learning. It's like teaching someone to play the piano by moving their fingers for them. They don't learn. They're just mad at you. So I know it hurts. I had to live that with my own, my oldest, for example, but sometimes you do get to act together. Your 16-year-old, he's smart. I already know that. I didn't meet him, but the answer he gave you is really kind of cool. It's an existential answer. And so I would have an existential discussion with him and make sure that both parents are on the same page. Otherwise, you're going to get kids who are splitting, they go to mom or dad to get the answers they want. So don't let your kids split you, especially if they're really smart. They're going to try to manipulate the situation. Not because they're bad kids. It's, we all do that. That's what we do. We want to get our way. We're going to find a way if we can. So your job in that kind of situation is to make sure he understands your concerns, like the trip. I think you should wear an orange jacket. No, I don't need it. Okay. Right? It's your life. If you get pneumonia, or you come back, you're really cold, okay, then you'll learn. Maybe next time you'll listen to me. But remember, part of growing independent is not listening to the parent. If you have a child who always listens to the parent, they're not independent. I don't know how many of you are spiritual or religious, but God put the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden to give us a choice, to make the wrong choice. If people say, why do bad things happen? This is existential. Well, if we didn't have a choice of choosing bad, there'd be no free will, there'd be no choice. And part of successful in life is knowing how to make the right choice. And then what you learn is sometimes you make the wrong choice. Just like the toddler who falls down. Sometimes you take a misstep. Oh, it doesn't work that way. So give your child the freedom to fail, and it's okay. And you're not a bad parent. You're a good parent, but be able to sit back, even though it's really hard. Again, back to religion, you think God enjoys seeing us suffer? No, God suffers with us, I think. But the suffering we go through, our bad choices, is how we grow as humans. That's my spiritual belief, but I don't want religion, just understand that that's also true parent to child.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's just feel better to listen to that. We are not bad parents, because when you see the parents had bad behavior, not just for their own future, sometimes I feel like there's something wrong I did, when he grew up. So then he had this kind of rebellion, something. I feel like, if I'm really always envy of those parents who get along well with their children very well. The children listen to them. I mean, it's not listen to everything, but just good advice. I don't know, just sometimes feel I failed in this aspect.
Well, you might, okay, you're a good parent, you care.
Mm-hmm.
Being a good
Yeah.
parent, step back. And there's a guy, a Dr. Foster Cline with a C. He wrote a book, Love and Logic for Teenagers. It's an old book, but it's, again, his premise is your job is to give them an environment in which to thrive. And it's their job to do that, to thrive. It's not your job. And Foster Cline, I went to a lecture by him, and he said, even Jesus lost one. So, you could do everything right, and it may still not work out, but it's not your fault. It's not necessarily a child's fault. Sometimes things don't work out, and even when we do our best. So take the pressure off. It's not your job to make sure they get in the best school. In fact, your job, I would say, is to make sure, I want you to succeed. What tools you need to succeed? Maybe you talk to your son and ask him, why do you think that you don't listen to my input? And he might say, you never listen to me. Or you might say, you're unreasonable. Or he might say, I don't want to talk about, I don't know what he'll say, but it might be an interesting question when you're calm, not in anger, and listen carefully and don't deny it. Don't say, that's not right. Oh, I didn't mean, like he says, because you always yell at me. Don't start saying, I don't yell at you. Don't say that, because then you're negating what he's telling you. And that's why they don't communicate. So he says, you always yell at me. And I said, okay, you think I always yell at you? Is that because I tell you what you do wrong, or am I raising my voice? Or, I mean, find out what you're doing, and then don't get defensive. Normally, we get defensive. Somebody says we did something wrong, we get defensive. That's not helpful with communication. Just want to thank you for telling me, and then walk away. And maybe he'll come to you and says, Mom, why are you always mad at me? And you can say, I'm not mad. I want to help you. And again, and if you don't think you're mad, but he says that to you, okay, why do you think I'm mad? Well, you raise your voice. Well, I need to learn to control my own emotions, or maybe this is really important to me that you do well. So explain yourself. And when you talk to each other, another good thing to do is use I statements. Rather than saying, you make me mad, this is parent. I did this with my kid again. So in the kid that wasn't taking his homework, when I got mad at him, my heart would skip beats. And we went to counseling with the kid. And I told the therapist, this is just wrong. My heart's skipping beats. She says to me, that's your problem. And I thought it was rather cruel, but she's right. My skip heartbeats is my problem. It's not his. So again, it's your job is to give him an environment in which to succeed. Whether he succeeds or not, it's up to him. But since you're all caring parents, and I suspect most of your kids are really pretty darn smart and have a good ethic in them somewhere, even though they don't play it out, they'll be okay. Again, I'm making generalization. I don't know any of them in particular, but if you're really concerned, you can ask the child, would you like to talk to some counselor, somebody outside of the family? That's perfectly okay. Some kids really would like that because they feel that if they tell you what's bothering them, you might want to fix it. You might tell them they're wrong. You might get mad at them. You might disappoint them and disappoint you, and they don't want to tell you, but they do want to tell someone. So, and it's better to a professional than to their friends, because their friends are not much wiser than they are.
Yeah, so talking about this, in fact, I asked him to talk to you with you, and he
Right.
refused. And he said, I have no problem. You have problem. You need to talk to the doctor.
Well, again, this is a really smart kid. And then the discussion is, well, maybe we go together. And sometimes I tell the parent, oftentimes, you got to when I'm telling you, back off. I'm going to tell you in front of the kid, and I'll say, I believe you. I would say, well, read the book. I tell the kid, read the book, see what you think. This is not about you. This is about teens in general. And I would tell him when I'm telling you, it's your life. I agree with you. It's your life. So I'm joining you too. The way I get people to reconsider what they're doing, I join them. I don't say, well, that's stupid. Why are you thinking that way? I would never do that. Then you'd get defensive, right? So I would say to you, you're very worried about the child saying stop, and you're not listening to him. I would say this in front of him, so he knows he has an ally. Some kids like that, other kids don't. And then again, it's his life. I'm not the solution for everyone. I can help kids who want to be helped. Sometimes I meet kids. I saw a kid today at the synagogue who I met a couple weeks ago, and his mother wanted to learn how to calm himself. And the kid, I could tell he wasn't interested. He was like this, and I called him on it, said, you don't seem very interested. And he said he would think about it. And today at synagogue, she said, he's coming to see you next week. I said, okay, but the first thing I'm going to ask when he comes in, did you want to come in, or did your mom force you? And if he says, my mom forced me, I said, well, there's nothing to work on here. I'm not going to participate in this. I want to help you if you want my help. And the same as a parent, I'm here to help you. If you think things are fine, let's agree. Like, does your son get good grades, I assume?
Not yet.
Not yet. So then you need to have a discussion with him that he's sort of ruining his potential. One of the things when you're a kid, you don't even know the future. And if he's making choices that prevent him from setting a solid foundation, it's going to make it harder in the future. My son, the prime example, getting zeros in homework, bad grades, but it turned out okay. So some people take the hard route, and that's okay. If you want to listen to my radio show, I mentioned my radio show earlier. I've interviewed a lot of successful people, doctors, lawyers, rabbis. Have I interviewed Chinese? I don't know, people from my community. But anyway, lots of successful people. Only a quarter of them know what they want to do after college. And most successful people I met fell into their careers in their mid-20s, late 20s, including doctors and lawyers and book agents and artists. And it's really interesting. So chill parents, chill child. It's to be okay if you're no persistence and you don't. I mean, one of the things I talk to teens about, you're in charge of your brain right now. Somebody said earlier, you're developing brain till 25. You're in charge. How are you going to program your brain? How are you going to code your brain? Do you think playing video games all the time? I know it's enjoyable, but doing fun things are fun. Is that programming your brain the way you want to code it? And most of the teens says, oh, it's probably not a good idea. I mean, they're smart. So I would address them that way, but listen to them. And again, if your son, maybe you'll say, well, but the doctor I talked to today, he said that maybe I am wrong. So come in and we'll let you convince him that I'm wrong, and I will listen. I promised. Maybe that could get him in the office. If I don't want to trick him, but he's not. If he thinks nothing is wrong, and I met people kids like that, nothing is wrong. Like the baseball player, I want to be a major league player, but I don't need your help. I don't need to learn how to use my imagination. Okay, that's your choice. I'm thinking you're never going to get there, but they'll have to find it the hard way. And it's okay.
Yeah, thank you. I take too long time. I'm sorry for everyone. So
No, this is, you're raising questions that everybody has, many people have.
Yeah, so,
okay.
yeah, very good. So I will add a little bit on the trip thing.
Mhm.
I actually give a talk in Chinese 2 days ago, and it's recorded. I will send out the recording. And
Mhm.
one of the examples I shared with younger parents is when my kids, we travel a lot, and I never pack for them.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe when they were very, very little, but then when they start knowing what to pick, I don't care. Well, if you miss a book, it's a toy, it's your problem. I let them make a decision. On the spending money too, I give them $20. My older one would save it through the end of the trip. My younger one would spend it right away. They take consequences, yeah.
Mhm.
And also I was talking about cooking when my son was very, very young for breakfast. Like I would ask them, hey, do you want to, you know, either the bread or the egg? They have some choice. So if they leave for school at 8 o'clock and they have to leave, I'll say, hey, do you want to leave 7:30 or 7:45? So all this verbiage, I train them very early days to take this in charge. Okay. So about video games, both my boys played a lot of video games, and one of them really got into trouble. A lot of trouble. Okay. And then the other one's not really trouble, it's got a lot of B's. And you guys know my older one got like 11 B's, a lot of B's in high school, right?
Mhm.
And then but I don't control, because the B's is okay with me. To me, it was not like, that bad. And my philosophy, if the teacher doesn't come talk to me about my son's grades, I'm okay. And that's, I lived with it. So he's fine. He went to Berkeley. He loved the cooking. And before he applied, he asked me like, okay, should I go for cooking school? I said, if you want to go, I support you. Then all his friends were doing computer science, so he chose computer science. But the end, he also took a semester off at UC Berkeley and went to work in the restaurant. So
Mhm.
yeah, now he did not want to work in the restaurant because it was hard working. Now he's back to programmer. So I didn't really tell him, I want you to do this. I let him figure out. So that's why I just want, because of the kind of the packing thing. Yeah, that's a little bit of story here. Okay.
I know her children really well, and all true, and they're great kids, they're great young men now. Yeah, and again, the fact that they had some trouble, didn't pack the right stuff, didn't know what they want to do, had to work at a restaurant to figure out they didn't want that. That's important. If you told them, don't work in a restaurant, you won't make a good living that way, they're may not listen to you and just resent you, or they may not work in a restaurant later on in life, they'll resent you for having told them not to do it because they don't know for themselves, they don't like to do it. So just let them experience it. And again, I think a lot of parents put pressure on themselves. If the kid's not highly successful going out of high school, they've failed. And I'm telling you, lots of successful people don't figure themselves out for another decade or even longer.
Mhm.
I always give the example of George Bush, the younger president, who was an alcoholic at 35 and president at 50. He got himself together. You can go to depths. So it's time, life is long, plenty of time to do really good stuff. I interviewed a doctor who flunked out of high school, didn't go to college, and at 28 figured out she wants to be a doctor. Now she had the advantage of being a minority member in a DI life still, but she got into medical school, did really well, became a leader in the Bay Area in medicine for many years. So there are many paths, and the way to be a success is to teach a child resilience. And your 16-year-old, I would ask him, what are you gaining besides enjoyment out of video games? I'm very curious what he would say to that. And then how are you going to learn? How are you going to trust yourself to succeed when things are tough? Something else I tell, my brother taught me this. My brother, who's a professor at ASU as well. My brother is at Arizona State University. He said, good students run towards challenges. Poor students run away from challenges. And why is that? Because good students understand challenges, how they grow.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you the same thing. Parents allow the kids to be challenged and just sit back and let them work it through. And it's the parent who's too worried that the child might fail. Like when they come to my office, the parent often wants to tell the story. And I say, no, I want to hear from the child. Because if you tell a story, you're suggesting your child can't do it, or you know it better, and that's not a message you want to give. You want the child to become independent and be able to speak for himself or herself.
Yeah, I mean, if someone have questions, please chime in. If nobody have a question, then I'll just continue
Do we have-
conversation. Yeah.
Here, I want to ask to see this.
Okay.
Anybody? Yeah.
Um,
Is this going okay for
Yeah.
you? Just making sure. Again, one of the problems I'm having as a speaker is I'm saying things that could be offensive to some people, I guess. If we talk about religion, I don't know how you're reacting. So if I'm making anybody uncomfortable, I apologize. And I want to just help. So I just want to say that because I can't see how you're reacting. Okay, go ahead.
my daughter is 12, almost 13. She always said is Mom, don't told me what I should do. Yeah, that's he always told me. So what do you think about it? And if I listen to her, that means I can say nothing.
Well, so at 12 or 13, first of all, acknowledge that she's no longer a kid. So at 8 or 9 years old, parents tell their kids what they should do. That's or young, right? Because kids don't know. And at that age, they accept it. But when they get to the age when they start becoming more independent, they don't want to hear. Why? Because they want to be independent. And so I agree with her I agree I shouldn't tell you what to do. But would you agree there's certain things you don't know yet? Is it possible there's things, it's possible there are things that you're not aware of. So my job as your parent is to at least make you aware. And I would like to have a good dialogue with you. I want to talk to you. I want to do what actually you want. I don't want to tell you what to do. I want you to make choices that are going to be helpful to you. So what I'd like to do as your parent is to let you know what I know, and then you decide. Like we've talked about this before. So you see a parent, like with my oldest who didn't take his homework for a long time, I was getting really frustrated with him until I said, you know why I think you should turn in your homework? I'm going to back off. And it was really hard, but he did well. Can I guarantee every child will do well? No, but you are smart parents, you care for your children. I suspect your children, unless there's a learning disability, a real problem, they certainly can do well when they set their mind to it. So I would tell you 12 or 13, remember, girls mature faster than boys. So you got to give it even more leeway than a 13-year-old boy who might be completely acting like a 9-year-old emotionally. And then you treat them like a 9-year-old. So but you don't want to pull a parent. You'll do what I say because I tell you. And I think many in China, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's the culture. Do what your parent says. Am I right? Am I right? That's sort of is that right? That's the culture. Do it. That's sort of my impression. And in America, you say that you're out of step with the rest of the United States. So, the child will get more and more resentful and less cooperative. So my advice is pull the parent card. You must not do this for life-threatening things. You must not drink and drive. You must not use cocaine. And you must, and if I know, I'm not going to allow opposite sex people in the house. Sexuality is a big thing. So there's certain rules in the family that are that you must, I think, a good parent insists on. But what to wear, we talked about the skirt earlier, when to do homework. Make sure they can tell you why you think. You can tell them, this is what I think. What do you understand my concerns to be? And then if she says that, okay, now tell me why you don't think that's right, or explain to me how you're thinking. She might say something immature, like, everybody procrastinates homework, and then you can say, I hear you say everybody does it, but in our family, we've been successful. I don't know who family is, but by doing things differently than everybody does. I don't care. All right, so let's agree that whatever you're talking about, let's check in with school teachers and see what happens. Like the 16-year-old earlier we talked about, who doesn't care about later life. I mean, that's an existential thing. At 13, you're probably not. She's just not thinking. She just wants to be with her friends or whatever. And then, this you know, the old thing, your friends are bad influences on you type of thing. Or if it's a boyfriend or girlfriend, that's even worse because and they don't want to hear it at all. They're in love, puppy love, or whatever. Tell them your concerns and it's your decision. Many kids, when you back off, they'll be much more likely to make the choice you like than if you pressure them. Right? Because people get defensive. You're wrong. If the kid says to you, you're wrong, you're going to get defensive and get mad. And if you tell the kid they're wrong, they're going to get defensive, get mad. So you just want to work as a team. And then your communication will be better and they're more likely to make the choice that you'll approve. But, you know, there's no guarantee. There's different people involved, but it's more likely to work if you cooperate with each other than try to outmaneuver each other. And they can make sure both parents are on the same page. I often see families where, you know, one parent thinks it's really important, the other one doesn't. And the parent who thinks it's important gets mad when the child doesn't do what they're told or what is right, but the other parent doesn't believe in what the parent is saying. So you need to talk to your spouse if they're involved with your child. If you have a spouse who comes home and is not involved with your child, that's another issue. You need to talk to your spouse about that then, because the child sees that parents not involved, and that creates a whole set of other problems. So, but they'll tell you that they might, if you listen to your child and let's say one spouse's involvement is not there, your child will tell you, and then sometimes you're stuck because your spouse may not want to hear you. And that shouldn't be the child's problem. That's something you need to work out. And in that case, maybe marriage counseling could work. These aren't easy things, but the general rule is, again, you want to communicate. You don't want to pull out the parent card. I know what I'm talking about because I know more than you, which is only sometimes true, because oftentimes you don't know the whole story, and it is a different generation. And you want to join your child. I understand you think I don't understand. It's true. I don't understand the social media. I don't understand the kind of pressures you're on. I get that. So explain to me. Let me be a part of your team. And that's how I get kids to talk to me. Now it's easier. I can tell kids what your parents will tell them, and they listen to me, and they don't listen to the parent, because there's not as much baggage. If the kid goes along with the parent, they're thinking I'm admitting I'm wrong. If they go along with Dr. Anbar says, then it's, I'm choosing to take, because I will never force it. I'm choosing to take that advice. Did you want to say something, Dana?
Oh, no, there's a fly.
There's a fly had a question here. Other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Let me I want to show a quick demonstration that I show children. You can do this. It's described in chapter 1 of this book and chapter 6 of the hypnosis book. I'm going to use Dan as my model here. So I always show this as like the first lesson, and it's a demonstration of the power of words. And after we do this, if you want to do this with your child, as long as you're interested, or with your spouse, whatever, it shows you how important words are. And were you there when I first taught one of your kids about positive talk? I don't know if you were there that day.
I was not a good parent. I just dropped them off.
Don't say that. I think you're a really cool parent that you give your children opportunity to be themselves.
Thank you.
So, and what you just said is what I'm going to demonstrate why she shouldn't say that. Because if she says to herself, I'm not a good parent, she starts believing it. And I know this family really well. And again, I heard this elsewhere. If my kid doesn't do well, I'm not doing my job. And that feels terrible. So be kind to yourself. And the demonstration I'm going to show you is how you want to teach your children to be kind to themselves, because many of them are not. Many of them know what they're supposed to be. And when they fall short, they get really down on themselves. And that's toxic cycle. They get down, they don't do as well, they get more down. That's how you get depression, or kids that drop out of college or whatever. Okay, so put out your arm like this.
Okay.
And your job is to keep your arm up. I'm going to push down. Now, when you're doing this with somebody else, you want to make sure you're not much stronger or much weaker than them. If you're much stronger, you want to put your hand, I'm going to push down your arm closer to the shoulder. If you're much weaker, you want to put it closer to the arm because there's torque. So I'm going to find a place where I can't push her arm out. I cannot push her arm down easily. So keep up your arm as best you can. Okay, so I'm gonna move further up. Ready? Okay, so here I can't. Now you're gonna say, I'm weak, I'm weak, I'm weak, but don't let me push your arm down. So say you're weak 3 times.
I'm weak, I'm weak, I'm weak.
And do your best. Ready?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now put out your arm again and say, I'm strong, I'm strong, I'm strong.
I'm strong, I'm strong, I'm strong.
Is there a difference? I was
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
How did that happen?
I think of course, there's willpower.
What you say to yourself, this is the first lesson, is what happens. Now, here's another part of this, really important. What will happen if you say, I'm not weak? What do you think will happen if you say, I'm not weak?
It's better to say I'm strong.
Why?
This is positive. You just taught us
But what will happen if you say, I'm not weak? What do you think will happen?
neutral. I don't
Okay,
know.
put out your arm and say, I'm gonna do an experiment.
Okay.
I'm not weak.
I'm not weak. I'm not weak. I'm not weak.
Ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens? Why did you get weak?
I just give up.
Well, you said I'm not weak. So why did you give up?
I don't know.
What do you think? Who knows? Why did she get weak when she said I'm not weak?
Because your attention focus on the weakness.
Correct. So like you say, don't think about pink elephants. You gotta think about pink elephants. So the first lesson, and your children need to understand this, when you're hard on yourself, when you say, I'm stupid, I can't get it, you believe it. It's like coding your brain. Is that what you want? Now, many of us are very negative with ourselves all the time. Maybe our parents were like that, or coaches, whatever, and it takes a while to break the habit. But any negative thought can be rephrased in a positive way. So let's say you think you're stupid. What can you tell yourself that's true and positive when you think you're stupid? I'll open to the audience. What can you tell yourself? How do you rephrase that?
I think we just focus on the positive side, because if you
So-
keep worrying about something gonna happen.
Right, but if you think you're stupid, a teacher told you you're stupid and you believe it, or your parent told you you're stupid or lazy, or whatever, how do you rephrase that to honor that idea that you think you're stupid, but in a positive way? That's the question.
I just learn slower.
What's that?
I will learn slower, but I will get it.
Well, if you say that, you'll learn slower. That's not better.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I will do better. I will be smarter if I try really hard.
Okay, so I want to be smarter. And you said, if I learn very hard, when you read chapter 1 of this book, you're going to hear trick words. If is a negative word. Why? Because you're leaving room that it won't work, that you're not going to do better. So you say, I'll be smarter when I work harder.
When?
And when you talk to your children, the same thing. Don't say, if you do your homework, you'll get a good grade. When you do your homework, you'll get a good grade, because you're putting a little suggestion there. So when you read chapter 1, and you can read it with your child, there's different words. Like another word I do not use is to try. What's wrong with trying something?
There's different. There could be many results. Could
Right.
be
Right. Might not succeed, right?
right.
Yoda, Master Yoda, he said, do or do not, there is no try. What's he meaning? When you do something, you're always going to succeed at doing it. Sometimes it won't work the way you want it to work, and then you learn. Sometimes work better than you expect, and then you'll be happy. But you always succeed when you do something. You succeed at doing it, whatever the outcome. When you try something, you may not succeed at all. In fact, if you watch your own language and you said, I tried something in the past, usually you mean I failed. Is that what you want to convey to yourself? So don't try, just do. So this is a very simple example of positive talk that gets a lot of buy-in from the kids. I must know, Dr. Anbar must know what he's talking about, because this really works. So work on words and be positive. Now I want to show one other demonstration. Put out your arm. Do not let me push your arm down. Ready? You're weak. Ready? You're strong. How does that work?
I don't know. I'm just more pumped up when I say you're strong.
So other people can influence you.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're going to demonstrate this at home, don't do this with your child, because they don't want to but better between siblings or friends or something, because they'll fight even harder against you to prove you wrong sometimes. But the reason I'm showing this to you is that the words you use with your child impacts them. So usually I'll tell the children, okay, so work on being positive. And I ask the child, is it okay if your mom reminds you? Most of the time they say yes. And I said, okay. And I asked mom, do you understand rules? Okay. So if we play this game, if your mom says something negative, you get to tell her, rephrase that, be positive. And then I say to the kid, does your mom ever say, stop yelling? And usually say yes. So that's negative. What should she say? What do you think parents should say instead of stop yelling?
Can you be quieter?
Please be quieter, right? Now, or stop fighting. What would you say?
Be nice to each other.
Be nice to each other.
That's good.
Yeah, because when you say stop yelling or stop fighting, the kid hears yelling and fighting, and you wonder why they keep yelling. Because you just told them, they don't hear the stop. And then I go, this is the last part of the demonstration I teach the kids the first time is, so you're influenced by other people,
Yes, for sure.
but you can, and I'll say, and I say, but you can block this. How would you block me when I say you're weak? How can you block me? And this way, you have to be really quiet because some kids will take a minute or so to figure it out. So just how do you think you can block me?
I'm confident I'm strong.
Okay, so let's put out our arm out, say you're weak, and you think to yourself that you're strong, right? You're weak. Effect is gone. You see? Now, some kids will say, I'm going to say, I'm not weak. And then, okay, let's test it out. That doesn't work. So they learn. I let them flop. Now, after this discussion, I'll say to the kid, have you ever hurt, anybody ever hurt your feelings? Most of them will say yes. And I said, who's responsible when your feelings get hurt? And most of the kids realize it's them. Some say it's the other person. And I say, well, think about it again. And why you're responsible? Because you're in charge of your own feelings. And now you know how to block it. Nobody can ever hurt your feelings without your permission. That's the first lesson. Most kids get that pretty quick. And it can change their lives, just knowing that. Now, I also tell them this is nothing new when I'm teaching. Henry Ford, the car manufacturer, said 100 years ago, he said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. How does that work? We already talked about it earlier with the car example. If you think you can't find a parking spot or can't do the math problem, you're going to quit before you even start. If you think you can, then you'll keep working at it until you solve it. And if you can't solve it, you can always ask for help. You can always do it. Now, Buddha, 2,700 years ago said, what we think is what we become. What we think is what we become. So that's what I'm teaching, just teaching the modern version of that. And the kids usually really like this because they have a tool, they can see it works right away. There's other tools, but that's the simplest one to show.
Yeah, wow.
What's that? And you've never seen this?
No, I said
Oh.
I was bad. I'll just drop them off.
Okay, rephrase that. Rephrase that. Okay, let's see how she does.
Okay. I'm a good parent, but I'm hands off. So
I'm a good parent by being hands off.
I'm being hands off. I'm
That's
really
correct.
a being hands off
You
parent.
practice I love it. Good job.
I never called you, never talked to you about what you talk with them. I respect their privacy and
Good job.
they're fine.
And you want to reframe, just like I'm doing with her, you want to reframe with your kid, right? So if they say I'm a bad kid who got a bad grade and I disappoint you, say, you care so much, I'm really proud of you. If you didn't care, you wouldn't think that way. So that's called reframing. I saw a 10-year-old who was very, very stubborn and obsessive. And the mom got in a big fight with him because he wanted to finish his homework late at night. He had procrastinated all day. He was working on his homework. And she got really upset with him because he was not going to bed. And I said, but he really wants to do his homework. How wonderful. And so you want to give your child, even if they're making wrong choices, find something good to tell them. because everybody likes to hear good things about themselves. They can be much more cooperative. I have parents who come in to my office and say, this and this and this, like there's 10 things I need you to work on my child with. And I'm saying, oh, that's overwhelming to me. How do you think your child feels? And then pick one thing that you think would be better if the child got better at. And if you're doing this on your own, don't tell them, well, last year you broke the car, and this year you broke the window, and now you're messing up in school. You just don't think. If you're doing that to your child, you're part of the issue. So I believe in you. You're smart. I know you can make better choices. How can I help you? What do you want to do? Let's problem solve. The last time you could have made a better choice. Tell me what you were thinking. Let's see if you can think about it differently. And if it takes a few times, that's fine. Just like the toddler, fall a few times until you get it, many times. Or riding a bicycle, fall a few times and you get it. Same thing. Or driving. You don't drive perfect the first time, you're really nervous, then you get it. Your teen is like that. Be patient. Sometimes you say, the teen should know better. I just met with a couple of teens. I said, okay, it's $20 check at the restaurant. What's a 20% tip? They don't even know. These are high school seniors. Don't know how to calculate tips because they never been taught. It's simple, right, for us. But it's always on the receipt, so I have to think.
That's right, that's right.
I asked, why does the sun set in the west? They couldn't even start giving me an answer.
Wow.
It's kind of sad. I hope your kids, these are, I don't know. I hope your kids can answer it. Actually, an 8-year-old can answer that. One of my smart 8-year-olds answered the question. But the point is, they'll shock you if you really ask them. Don't lecture at them. Ask them what they know. You might be shocked, but they don't know. And then don't say that's really dumb. Didn't you listen in school? Teach them. That's how you can help. But the only way you know what to tell them is if you ask them, don't lecture at them because they'll shut down. You've seen that. Then when you listen, and then they give you one-word answers. Just patient, pick one thing, ask them, what do you think? Like the girl who thinks, the 12-year-old girl who doesn't want to listen, I never want to listen to your mom. You don't let me make my choices. I think that's true. You probably don't let her make the choice. Tell me why you make the choice and let me give my input and then you decide. And then she's going to be much more cooperative.
Wow. Very powerful.
I'm happy to answer questions. Nandan said earlier that if your kids want to go into the health fields, I'm all about mentoring people. If they want to shadow me at some point, this is more invitation for 15 and up and college kids. I came from an academic model. I worked in hospitals for many years, and we always had medical students and residents. So if you have a child who wants, I'll tell you, I had one kid who wanted to go to medical school. He wrote 2 articles with me. Another kid who, because I'm an academic kind of doctor, we've done a lot of articles, and if you look at my, if I don't have my CV online, but I've probably written 30 articles with people who are college age and younger, including high school, but not every. They got to be, they got to be really want it, and they need to work hard at it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm direct, and I think you figure that out, guys. And if they do a poor job, I'll tell them this is not gonna fly. This is a medical thing. I have one quick story about that. So there's a medical student who rotated with me, and a 2-week rotation, I gave him a pass. He said, what do I need to get to do honors? And I said, well, you just came and watched. I'm not gonna give you honors. I want to do honors. Well, you have to do something extra. I'll write in it. And I said, like, what can I do? I said, I'll let you write a chapter for a book I'm writing. Okay, so I made the mistake of giving the honors at that point but he wrote the chapter in a whole 3 days, and it was really superficial. And I said, okay, this is scientific publication. You need to work hard at it. Here's what you could do. He came back 2 days later, and again, superficial. I went a 3rd time, superficial. I said, go talk to people in the hospital who are doing what you're writing about and learn from them. They came to me and said, he talked to us, but I don't think that he was listening to us. They were very concerned. And I ended up taking the chapter away from him because he couldn't. Well, I broke it up into 4 pieces, and I gave the hospital workers the opportunity to write it. And then I said, you do this one section. So he turned that in, and I read it, and I said, oh, this is amazing. And I looked at some of the references. He had misquoted. It's like, he was like ChatGPT. He gave false information. I said, I'm sorry, I cannot accept this. That's a rare thing. So if your child wants to write an article or shadow, it's got to be professional. So that'll be a good learning opportunity for the kids who want to. If you want to, you can contact Dan and we'll talk, and I want to know why your child wants to shadow. And we'll also talk about how to be professional. So if you go observe a patient, you need to, the patient needs to agree to it. You need to, you can't be wearing shorts and a t-shirt. You got to dress like a, semi-professional, and you don't talk unless I invite you to talk, because there's therapy going on. I've had kids, oh my gosh, this generation, they come on Zoom. Sometimes we'll let them come on Zoom and they're eating. It's like watching TV. I said, this is therapy. These are college, what are you doing? And like, these kids don't even know how to behave. So, but that's all right. So if one of your kids did that, I'll teach them, but I'll be pretty direct, because where I'm most impatient is if a patient gets hurt or gets, that's when I don't like, that's not fair. So we'll give them orientation. Maybe Dan, and you can give them orientation before they come. Better in person, as I see in Zoom, they can't, again, their responses can't be seen. I can't monitor them as well if they're just watching behind me because the patient's in front of me. I'd rather have them both in the room. So in fact, I'm going to suggest if we do it through Hattie that they need to come in person.
Yeah, we have a lot of San Diego students here.
And if somebody is in the Bay Area, they fly down for a couple of days, we can arrange it to come a couple of days. They'll still learn a lot.
Yes,
The other thing I would say, if they're going to come, they should at least read my hypnosis book, because that tells what I do. So it won't be like going to Mars.
yes,
Right.
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, what's the age requirement, Dr.
I would say 15, they have to be mature, but I'll take 15-year-olds. I've had 15-year-olds before.
Okay,
Now, some patients don't like that, and then they'll just have to wait. Then the observer has to wait in the waiting room, but most of my patients are used to it. Did your kids ever have people in the room? Do you know? You don't know, you weren't there.
yeah,
I don't know.
they don't tell me, they
Yeah,
don't tell me
I
nothing.
don't remember.
Zero.
I don't remember, but I think actually both of them were open to it, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, interesting. So, yeah, so here's the website. Center Point Medicine is in La Jolla, right next to UCSD. And I put the link there. So Dr. Anbar is medical doctor. So medical doctor take insurance. So whether your insurance, they accept your insurance, you need to call their office from, we have no financial engagement with any of this, okay? Just helping the students is through insurance, the medical doctor. So I want to make it very clear. And
I know HMOs,
Yeah.
HMOs won't have us.
Yeah.
And Blue Shield decided, I do counseling, which I never hidden, and they decided they want to pay for counseling, so
Okay,
don't take Blue Shield. But
Okay.
all the PPOs, and maybe you can show them the radio show website.
okay.
It's really-
How do I go to the radio show?
So it's Centerpoint Actually,
It's not this one?
no, that's
Okay.
that's the practice site.
Okay,
Maybe if you scroll down, it'll have a link to
Okay.
maybe, this one. Where
This
it
one?
says, click the link to learn more about
Okay.
hypnosis. Click
Yeah.
on that.
Mhm.
And then the radio show is up top right. Right there. So let's scroll down a bit. So it has, I've done like 170 radio shows.
170?
Yeah, I
Oh
do
my
one every
gosh.
week, every week.
Wow, wow, wow.
So Sally Raymond, that's the mother
Yeah, yeah,
whose son
yeah.
didn't have resilience, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let me see what else would be useful. Alice Martell, this is July 9th.
Mhm.
She was my book agent. She started out as a lawyer
Mhm.
at the age of 29.
Mhm.
When at 28, her client said, "You'd make a great book agent." She said, "I'm sold." She didn't even know what it was because she didn't like law. You can
Mhm.
hear her story, but it shows you that you can change your mind. Let's scroll some more down. There's some patient stories, but let me see if I can. Let's see.
We need to get you to talk to an Asian American here.
I know, so I need a volunteer. Scroll down.
Mhm,
I know if I talk to Asian American.
mhm,
I actually would love to talk to somebody from China
mhm.
and I want to hear the difference in the cultures. Somebody wants to volunteer. I'd be happy,
We have
I'd be
slap.
happy to interview you,
That's right.
and I'd love to hear your life stories. Yeah, so if somebody wants to volunteer, please speak up. I'll book you. We're booking now in early December. It's recorded. The show is recorded.
Yeah.
It's broadcast about 3 weeks later. I love it. A great idea.
Yes, I can I can
Oh,
recommend.
all right, good.
Easy. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a lot of stories.
I'd love to.
Yeah, I actually wrote a book.
Cool, and you
myself.
can promote the book.
No, I haven't published yet. I
Well,
wrote it 10 years ago.
so we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
I interviewed this lady. Oh, this is really interesting. Scroll down. On September 10th.
Yeah.
Sherry Cardenas, that'll become live. It's already, it has my.
Okay,
website
nursing to
update.
art, okay.
So she was a hospice nurse,
Mhm.
had a left brain injury, and then she developed amazing art ability that she never had before.
Wow,
And it shows you the potential that, well, I don't think it was buried in her right brain. I think the right brain can access a lot of cool stuff, and I can teach your kids to do that
yeah.
with hypnosis. It's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, so, yeah, so one thing, we can, let me see.
Oh, and I mentioned AI before. This is really
Yeah,
important.
okay.
So these are things, I'm writing a chapter now about AI in education.
Mhm.
So it's really important to explain this to your kids. Because, for example, I used to be a good speller. I'm a horrible speller now. Why? I just spell check. The word looks wrong. I don't think.
That's
I
right.
just spell check.
Yeah.
I used to memorize number well. I don't. Why? Because I just put it in my phone. I used to navigate really well. I don't. Why? I use GPS. And recently I caught myself looking at ChatGPT for a question that I knew the answer to, but it took too much effort to look up the answers. I looked up ChatGPT. Yeah, this is right. Sometimes they tell you wrong information, but I knew the material. But then I realized, if I start looking at ChatGPT because it's hard to recall information, I'm gonna lose that ability.
That's right.
And so this is a real danger to the developing mind.
Yeah.
And
Kids.
it's so easy to just get the answer. And in fact, one of the things I'm going to talk about in the chapter I'm writing is that in education, we need to stop rewarding knowing the answer,
That's right.
but reward solving the problem, which
Absolutely.
ChatGPT cannot.
Mhm.
And so, on the other hand, I recently had to write a medical paper. You can tell I'm an academic still under a deadline, and I had to get some information. And I was first looked for it under the Google Scholar and PubMed, which are sites where you can find articles. It was unwieldy. I went to Claude. Claude's another AI, and I said,
That's right.
"Tell me this article." And it gave me exactly what I needed. I didn't trust it. And I went and got the original article, and he actually Claude got the date wrong, but the article was correct. It was perfect. So using AI correctly can be really useful. And I'm hoping the schools teach the kids how to do that. Some schools are not allowing AI, which I don't think is good because they're going to access it anyway. So just like the parents, you got to let them flop sometimes, but they need to at least be aware you do not want to use AI to write your essays because then you don't know how to think.
Yes.
And part of education is learning how to think. So just be aware of the dangers of AI.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. This is very good. Okay, so yeah, so I want to kind of finish this sessions with a little bit of my own testimony for Dr. Anbar and for counseling in general. Okay, and so all of you know I have two kids. Now you all know both of my kids see Dr. Anbar. Okay. So, and my kids, a lot of people think my kids are like, they're successful because they all went to Berkeley, right? But I want to let you know, it's not about like, oh, your kid is sick or has, a lot of issues. And then it's a medical help. So I want to be really clear. Counseling is for the kids to have somebody to talk to, very experienced doctor like Dr. Anbar give a different perspective and able to utilize tools. So even your kids are seeing Dr. Anbar, it doesn't mean that they're not doing well or something wrong with them. Do you agree with me, Dr. Anbar, on that one? Yeah.
I agree. And there are other excellent therapists out there,
Mhm.
but the main thing, the way you can tell if a therapist, in my opinion, is good for your child, first of all, do they like them? Do they connect? But you want to know, are they just solving the symptoms? Or are they figuring out the problem? Like say if a child is stressed, why is stressed? Because my parents are pushing me too hard. Okay, let's talk to your parents. Why is stressed? Because I'm afraid that if I get a B, my life is over. Well, let's talk about that. Why are you stressed? Because I don't want to disappoint my parents. Well, again, let's talk to your parents. Your parents just, so you have to listen to the child. If the therapist, if your child tells you you're not going to, you don't need to know the details, but you want to know the orientation. If the child tells you can just focus on the symptoms, from my perspective, that's not going to work out as well if they learn to understand themselves. If they come to me, I'm going to teach them about interacting with their inner self, their subconscious, which is fairly unique to me, but there's only one of me, so I can't teach everyone. In the Life Guide for Teens, we talk a little bit how to listen to yourself. And if your child is willing, and remember, this is really important, they have to be willing, because if they're not willing, none of this works. We can all say, like, I teach bar mitzvah kids, Jewish kids, 12, 13, prepare them for the religious ceremony. And I offered many of them to teach them how to self-regulate. Most of them are not interested. They don't see a need. So if your 16-year-old that we talked about before sees no need, not going to do much. However, they might benefit from talking with you and me just to understand. So you, mom, understand you can back off and be okay. And then everybody might get along better. But if they're interested, amazing things can happen.
Yes. So, yeah, so my my kids love Dr. Anbar, and also one of the kids still in school and is pursuing PhD. It's funny, it's in the change from computer science to mathematics. And then he has his high school counselor and working with him and along the college. And people think that's funny, like, oh, you're a college kid, why you need a college counselor, right? Dr. Anbar just mentioned about making choices. Okay, kids along the way, all our life is making choices. So he, my younger kid, did thank me one day because he has to make choice about quitting computer science, pursuing theoretic math. It's a huge decision for him. A lot of pressure, right? And he did talk to Dr. Anbar. He talked to me, talked to his friends, he talked to his college counselor as well. At the end, he got all the information. He made his own conscious decision. And he lives with it. He's in peace with it, because his friends, he just, he's still here in Berkeley, the 5th year, but some of his friends went to OpenAI, at least 4 of them, and their bonus now is like 1.5 million over 2 years, right? So if he was sticking to computer science, and there's very high possibility he can be one of them as well, but he's very in peace with it because he made a conscious decision. So he did thank me. So mom, the best resources you have for me is a college counselor, and also, Dr. Anbar is also a psychology counselor. And then the thing is, Dr. Anbar uses hypnosis. You don't prescribe, right? Yeah, he doesn't prescribe medication. In many ways, our culture, we would like to more a natural approach. So that's why I'm very grateful. And I've known Dr. Anbar many years now, and send many kids, including my families.
And the cousin was the first one I met.
Yes.
Can I tell a story about him? Your cousin, a little bit, short one?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
So her nephew
My nephew.
was from Shanghai,
Yeah.
boarding school in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Came here
Mhm.
when COVID hit,
Yeah.
and was my first, I think it was my
Yeah,
first time we met.
He loved you, and he called you grandpa. That's right. Yeah.
And I didn't use his, I actually didn't ask his permission to do this, so maybe I shouldn't. But anyway, the main thing that I did with all the kids, and actually all the people who sent me, is to understand how special they are. And they just have to be aware of that, and then it transforms them, because many kids I see feel like they're inadequate.
Yeah.
They're not good enough. And one of my abilities is to have them understand it. As long as they're open with themselves, every one of them has an important role in this world. And when they get that, doors open. And the piece you talked about with your younger son, he, because my philosophy that I talk about is, it's not about the money. It's not a material object. It's how you feel, and are you fulfilling your role in the world? I work in La Jolla. I'm a doctor, but I could make a whole lot more money in other areas of medicine and counseling. I take insurance. I would make more money if I didn't take insurance. But to me, it's, if I have enough to live here, I'm happy, and I'm helping people.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter if you're the top in the class. It doesn't matter if you're multimillionaire. What matters is, are you doing what resonates with your soul? If you do that, you're happy, which I think you're hearing from your younger son.
That's right, yeah. So the thing is, talking about the counseling, the college counselor, or, emotional support from Dr. Anbar, is that you leverage. Everybody use the word leverage, especially in the stock market, you leverage, right? But the thing is here is literally you leverage. Sometimes we don't have the skills, like I don't have a good skill to converse with my kids. And then somebody else is conversing. Like, honestly, I really care less about, like in college, I tell people 4.0 or not, I don't care much. The kid's already in college, right? But the college counselor does care and keeps encouraging my son to go reach higher goals. She won't write any advice on any PhD mathematical dissertation, right? It's her encouragement that results in a big reason that he has a 4.0 with the computer science and the mathematics. So if I keep telling him you got to get 4.0, man, he will be stressed out in some way, because he doesn't want to upset mom, but he want to respect the advice from experienced counselors. So that's why we're here, is to bring all the resources. And in every single event I share in Chinese or English, I always say it takes a village to raise a kid. So thank you, Dr. Anbar, for helping us raise our children.
You're welcome, but again, I'm thank you so much for the opportunity, but there are other people out there, and I don't want this to be commercial for me. I think the idea is, let your kid have the resources, offer them a counselor, offer them an opportunity to talk to somebody outside of the family if they want.
That's right.
Don't force them. Sometimes parents will say, take this kid and fix him. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can only teach them about who they are, and if they want to do it, I can help them a great deal.
Yeah, so
And you could tell within a session or two, it's not a long, if they don't want it, it's pretty obvious.
yeah, it's so we our ideology approach is really in alignment. So we work with experienced counselors. The first requirement is for kid to fill out the intake form. No matter how much the parents wants us to help, we're not gonna support unless the kid is willing to receive support. So we're completely in alignment.
Right, but some kids are trying to be very nice. They'll say they want support, but I can tell pretty quick they're not there. Again, I look at the body language.
Yes,
You can tell really, are they looking at you? Are they looking away?
that's right.
That's pretty clear.
Yes.
And I'm direct. I don't think, I don't think you're really interested in this. And sometimes they'll admit it, sometimes they won't. And, but again, I'll teach the positive talk. And the first assignment is use positive talk and tell me how it works. And kids will come back a week later, I forgot, or I didn't really do it. Then I usually say, well, I'll give you another chance. But when they forget, they're not really into it. So they sort of out themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
This is fine.
Yeah.
This is not for everyone.
Yeah, I completely. Yeah. So I think we're a little bit over time. Is there any other questions online coming in? Let me see. Did we miss anything? Okay, could you share the link for these videos? Yeah, I mean, Dr. Anbar's videos?
The one.
Yeah, the one we just I didn't follow, was not able to follow how to find those videos, but I want to look.
Okay. Yes, it's recorded. My team will take a couple of days to process it. If you are on the registration registered, you will receive an email. But
Not these videos. So those treatment videos. That.
The podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going down, look at that
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
And then
Here, I'm there.
yeah. So you will see
Engaging.
no, you will see the CPM radio show.
And also,
Okay.
if
CPM.
you look at the media and appearances,
Yeah.
have it. You will you'll see interviews that I've had with various kinds of people, including I think there's a Hattie interview from 3 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Do that.
Yeah, Dr. Anbar came to, I will share that video with you too. Yeah, this today's video. Yeah. So 3
Okay.
years ago, yeah, Dr. during COVID, we had it online, and every time the parents, because I see a lot of parents, okay, especially the, immigrants and Asian American. If I sense that the kids need help a little bit, and I'll just send that Dr. Anbar's video. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
yeah, Dr. Amber, you only see kids, you can only see kids in California and in New York, right?
Correct. As a doctor, I can only I'm only licensed in New York and California. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's my second question. In fact, I contact your office last Thursday or Friday. So I live in Bay Area. Do you recommend? You said you prefer not Zoom like session, right?
My preference is in person, but in the Bay Area, that's tough to do. I work with New York patients I've never met in person. It can work, it's just not as great. I think I gave you were given
Yeah.
it to Dr. Lazarus.
Yeah, I did receive Jeffrey Lazarus, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know if he's still in practice, but he does similar things to me, but I don't think he takes insurance. But I haven't talked to him in years. So you check him out.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like probably I feel today I'm pretty connected with you. So yeah, so I'll see.
You're the one with the 16-year-old, right?
Yes.
16.
What you could do is we can meet online
Mm-hmm.
and we could talk together, and he may just say we're done, and that way you'll save yourself a trip and all that. But if we connect, sometimes I connect really easily with patients when they want to connect. I can tell right away. So if we make a connection and he's interested in working with me, then maybe I'll work with him online, and maybe once or twice we can meet in person, which is always awesome. I had a kid in Syracuse who I worked with for 5 years. And I met him in person 4 times over the 5 years. And I went to Syracuse, and he's moved and stuff. So, yeah, so it can work.
Okay.
I can't guarantee it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure,
You,
sure.
yeah. You connected with one of my kids, Moses, online, the older one.
Yeah.
Yeah, barely. I
Yeah.
think maybe a couple sessions
Yeah.
in person. Yeah. So online for sure, one-on-one, when you open up the Zoom, like the camera, I think it can work really well. We do a lot of teaching and counseling online. It's all good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but if people turn off the camera, then that's not going to work.
I
Yeah.
won't do it. If I'm working with a kid, they won't look at me or off camera, then I can't do that.
Exactly.
Like even when I'm uncomfortable, I spoke about it. I don't know how you're all reacting. I know the people I'm talking to, but there's a bunch of other people I don't know what they're thinking. I would love, in fact, again, I would be open to feedback from many of you just to hear how this worked. My main thing is I want to make sure that you remain receptive. If I said something that offended you, or that, and I may sound a little defensive because I mentioned religion, and some people go off the wall when you mention that. And I don't know, because you're a wide audience. I mention it because that's the way I think.
Yeah.
But if you are not religious, that's fine. I work with all kinds. I just want to make sure. But again, I don't know how you're reacting, and I've had parents in my presence who've reacted poorly, and I don't want to do that. I want to help.
Definitely. Yeah. So yeah, I left the Google review here, good or bad. It's authentic review. Please give us some review. Really appreciate it. It's all, events that we spend time organizing. So we would really appreciate your support. And we're gonna, continue inviting very interesting speakers like Dr. Anbar and others. So tomorrow we have an attorney actually gonna come here, not local, Berkeley attorney, Berkeley Law School, talking about family trust. And he's my attorney as well. So all the people I invite, we have personal experience. I have personal experience, and I know they're really good in what they're doing. And also we have a local CPA, Mandy. They will be here if for San Diego parents, and the trust and CPA, especially the Trump taxation law. If you guys can be in person, it's be much more effective. But it's in Bay Area, no problem. Feel free to dial in. Tomorrow, the same time, we share the flyers already. So anyway, with that, we're gonna Yeah,
So thank you for your attention. I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, you can contact me through my website or through Dan, and I'll, if you have specific questions and you want me back at some point to talk about a topic, I'll be happy to do that.
yeah, very good. Yeah, Dr. Anbar particularly changed his schedule to meet us, so really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Anbar.
Very
Thank all the parents. Thank the parents who came in person. Really appreciate it. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Completely different topic. Okay, thank you all. See you later. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.